of the APSP Congress. Uhuru! Have we had a grand time? I tell you what, if you have and I have, and you can share in that too, okay? I just want to say one thing. You see this luscious lipstick I'm wearing? This is Vanguard 7 Cadre. Uhuru! Deputy Chair always make us look good. All right. Okay, comrades. I've asked you to turn off your phones and to get your lunch tickets. And now I'm going to invite the Secretary General, Luwezi Kinshasa, to come. Kinshasa. To come up. Uhuru.
Your glasses?
I got no prayer.
It's not yours.
I got no prayer.
You got another one, okay. Uhuru. Just make it happen. One Africa.
One nation.
One Africa.
One nation.
One Africa.
One nation.
One nation.
One Africa.
One nation.
One Africa.
One sellout.
One bullet.
One sellout.
One bullet.
One bullet.
One sellout.
One bullet.
One sellout.
That sounds good.
Bullet, bullet, sellout, sellout. Bullet, bullet, sellout, sellout. Bullet, bullet, sellout, sellout.
Sellout, sellout.
Sellout, sellout.
Absolutely. Woo-woo. So today is our last day of this fantastic 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. You have seen the transformation for yourself since Saturday, and everyone here, I believe, is being transformed. And this is only the beginning. So we have next 5 years to get even more transformed. And we can begin just to think of the next Congress. And we already said we're going to have a Congress where? So it's a lot of preparation to do. So we're going to leave this place with a lot of work to do. With a lot of work. And the success of the next Congress will depend on the work we do in the next 5 years. So we're going to talk about this probably at the end. The chairman will do a summation later on today. So are we going to do the flag raising? No, not today. Oh, all right, okay. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank the artists yesterday. That was the biggest show on earth. With our greatest artists, so it was really fantastic. So, and without taking more time, I just like to convene the last day of the 7th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. And before I just do that, can you just put all your hands together, just to acknowledge your own contribution to the success of this Congress. And I'm going to hand over to the next MC. Who's the MC? Oh, Sister Fofi. She's the MC today. It's all yours.
Oh, I may be a little short, but you will hear me. And I'm vertically challenged. Next, I would like to bring Comrade Ilikia Ngoma, Director of the Freedom Mass Choir, who will teach the party anthem. Comrade Ilikia. Touch one. Touch one? Touch all. That's my favorite. But it takes a second place to Israel to. E-Africa. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Okay. All right, so the African People's Socialist Party does have an anthem now. And of course, the title would be Vanguard. And so I'm going to sing it and play it to the best of my ability, and then we're going to do it together. All right. And this is to help hit notes that I can't hit. Can I be away from? All right, so it's an octave higher than what I'm singing. So when I go Vanguard, it's really Vanguard, but yeah. So the chorus. So it's Vanguard, 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 Vanguard. And it's one note the whole time, right? So it is we, it is we who will lead the African nation to our total liberation. It's like very, yeah, almost like drum rolling and kind of serious, kind of dark but serious, whatever. It is we who will fight for self-determination. No one left behind, no exploitation. It is we who are the advanced detachment of the African poor and working class. It is we who will organize the toiling masses to beat the ass of the white ruling class. We are the vanguard, 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 right? Under the banner of African internationalism, following the party's principle of democratic centralism, we will defeat white power and parasitic capitalism. State power in the workers' hands, the basis of socialism. We are the vanguard, vanguard. We are the vanguard. The third verse. The party is everything, and everything is the party. Continuing the legacy of the father of the nation, Marcus Garvey, dual and contending. Black power is what we are building, using tactics and strategies. We are professional revolutionaries. We are the vanguard. We are the vanguard. Vanguard. Then you repeat it, and then you just end it with vanguard. So we're going to take it from the beginning, okay? All right. These words are not the easiest to rhyme, okay? But it worked. So ready? 1, 2, ready, and vanguard. Vanguard. Vanguard, vanguard. It is we who will fight African nation to our total liberation. It is we who will fight for No one left behind, no exploitation. It is we who are the advanced detachment of the African. It is we who will organize the toiling masses to beat the eyes of the. We are the Vanguard. Vanguard. All right. Under the banner of African internationalism, following the party's principle of democratic centralism, will defeat white power and parasitic capitalism. State power in the workers' hands, the basis of socialism. We are the Vanguard. Yeah. Vanguard. Is Musa here?
All right.
Vanguard. Vanguard. All right. The party is everything, and everything is the party. Continuing the legacy of the father of the nation, Marcus Garvey. Dueling, contending. Black power is what we are building, using tactics and strategies. We are professional revolutionaries. We are the Vanguard.
All right.
Vanguard.
Yeah.
We are the Vanguard. Vanguard. We are the Vanguard. All right, we're gonna do it one more time, but standing up, okay? Okay. All right.
All right. All right.
I got it. Are you about to do it anyway? All right.
Come on, get on stage, man. Get on stage, man.
Musa got all the talent in the world, if y'all didn't know. All right, you ready? That's fine. We'll start it. On 3, you ready? 1. Well, that's not a good count. Should be on 4. Anyway. All right. Ready? All right. 1, 2, ready, and Vanguard. 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 It is we. It is we who will lead the African nation to our total liberation. It is we who will fight for self-determination. No one left behind, no exploitation. It is we who are the advanced detachment of the African poor and working class. It is we who will organize the toiling masses to beat the ass of the white ruling class. We are the Vanguard. Vanguard. We are the Vanguard. Vanguard. Under the banner of African internationalism, following the party's principle of democratic centralism, we will defeat white power and parasitic capitalism. State power in the workers and the basis of socialism. We are the Vanguard. 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 We are the Vanguard. The party is everything, and everything is the party. Continuing the legacy of the father of the nation, Marcus Garvey. Duel and contending. Black power is what we are building, using tactics and strategies. We are professional revolutionaries. We are the vanguard. Vanguard. We are the vanguard. Vanguard. One more time, chorus. Vanguard. 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 We are the vanguard. Vanguard. Last time, vanguard. Just vanguard. Vanguard. All right, there you go.
We are the Vanguard. You know, at any age, you can always learn something. And I was remiss, and I'm going to admit my contradictions. I got up here and did not welcome and appreciate the chairman and the DC owner as the leaders of this African People's Socialist Party and African People International. Oh! General Secretary. I messed it up the first time. Oh, and I want to thank, you know, they say you're never too old to learn something, or you're never too, you know, I follow my direct leadership, Columbi and Danette, because she has the eye and the finger on the pulse of the movement that's moving the younger generation, and the younger generation need the older generation to either follow if you can't lead. So I follow because I can teach somebody else that's behind me that's watching. I want to say welcome to the NCC. Uhuru. Next, I would like to bring up Chimaranga. I can't say his last name, so I'm not going to mess it up. Chimaranga. Selambao. Chimaranga will give you the verdict for the reinstatement hearing. Chimaranga is the has been a member of the African People's Socialist Party since its founding and coordinates the party constitutional committee, Chimaranga and security. He asked me to make sure you have your voting cards. You got your voting cards? You gotta find them. Uhuru, Chimaranga.
So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to get your voting cards. There's a stack of them back there. So let me explain. I'm going to let you get settled down, and then I'll explain what we're going to do. I still see people standing up. Does that mean you don't have your voting cards, or you're doing something else? Okay. So guys, the king has to lead, can count votes. Just count. Yes. Uhuru. So this process about reinstatement is really important. And before I start the process, I mentioned the other day that I made a self-criticism around something concerning the voting, but I want to give the deepest self-criticism around this process that I was responsible for in terms of getting notification to the people who were appealing. This process was flawed, and those flaws were my responsibility. We should have definitely notified them way before we did, and that did not happen. So I want to make that self-criticism to this Congress as I try to correct those errors. It was a serious error because the African People's Socialist Party has to hold all our processes to a high standard, and I did not uphold that standard by not getting the notification to these forces the way it should have been done. So I want to give a serious self-criticism for that. People put in the time to make these rectification statements and make these appeals, and it should have been given much more attention to make sure it happened the way it needed to happen. So, Uhuru. So what I'm going to be doing is two things. The Reinstatement Commission had the mandate to make a recommendation. First, look at evidence and then make a recommendation to the National Central Committee on the reinstatement of two comrades, Comrade Diop Olagbala and Walia Brooks. On yesterday, you participated in the hearing where Comrade Diop Olagbala, you heard from Diop, you heard from witnesses who had direct knowledge of Diop's work, some of his activities, and you have now had a day to reflect on that. The Reinstatement Commission recommended to the NCC that Diop not be brought back into the party, that he would be allowed to reapply in 2022 at the next actually it's 4 years from now. It's 4 years from now. We changed all that. It's going to be 4 years. But at the next National Congress, he would be allowed to reapply. I think that was something that, based on the evidence, I believe subjectivity was certainly not a factor, or not the kind of factor that would have changed people's opinion about what should happen with Comrade Diop. So we gave that recommendation to the NCC, but it is up to the Congress. This is the second part of this. The Congress's APSP qualified voters who are not on probation. This is what a qualified voter is, not on probation, and having your dues paid up. That's what a qualified voter is. So if you're not on probation, you're a member of the African People's Socialist Party, not on probation, dues paid in full, then you can vote. So we're going to take the vote on the reinstatement of Diop, and it's going to be yays or nays. I'm going to call for people who want to accept Diop back into the African People's Socialist Party to raise their voting cards at this time. All those opposed to bringing Diop back into the party, raise your voting cards at this time. Okay, Haas, keep them high. Haas is vote counting. I have one too. It's not in here. I vote too. Man, it's not in there, it's in my other folder. And I'm the vote guy. So I'm definitely gonna need a break to get my voting card. Thank you. All right. So it was unanimous, is that correct, that Diop should not be brought into the party? He would be allowed to reapply in the next National Party Congress. So that is the decision of the 2018 Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. No, I don't think we need to say the number. No. Yeah, we're good. It was it was unanimous. Okay, so I want to call up Tiffany Murphy. Well, let me say this at the top. So for the next 2 hours, I'll be up here, but it's going to be different things that I'm doing. We're going to be doing a brief security workshop, myself and Tiffany Murphy. Cherry. Tiffany Murphy. All right, 4 feet. I'm messing with you. Tiffany Cherry. So I want to bring up Tiffany. Yeah.
So, one of the first political tasks that I saw this comrade Tiffany involved in was security. And this was during a Black is Back mobilization in Washington, D.C. This was, may have been the first security task that she took on that was a public mobilization for the party, for the movement. And I was struck by just how serious it was taken. Everybody was struck by it. And we watched Comrade Tiffany walking down the streets and the sidewalks in D.C. during this incredible mobilization. And we saw people trying to talk to her as she was on security, and just how she would not permit it. She was strict soldier-like, cadre-like in her stance. And that helped me to come to understand who this comrade is. In other circumstances, we've seen her as well. She has stood tall. She's standing tall now, isn't she? Yeah. And she is a strict, no-nonsense kind of party member. And we have a tremendous amount of respect for her, so much so that we unite with her that Tiffany is absolutely an inappropriate name for an African any place on the planet Earth. So this comrade has really become a new person. The first time I saw her acting in the role of the party of the movement was at that mobilization in Washington, D.C., where she did security. The first time I met her and was conscious of her, she stood up in the audience. Perhaps it was in an NPDUM convention, and raised a question. And the next time I saw her, shortly after that, I didn't recognize her. So she's been involved in a process of rebirth for a while now. And we just want to come on home, and she wants to come on home, and we're going to make that happen. And one of the ways that we're going to make that happen is that Comrade Tiffany wants to abandon the name of the colonizer and to acquire a name from Africa. And that's what is going to happen now with your permission and your participation, Uhuru. So Comrade Secretary General Luizi, if you'll come forward. And I've mentioned some of the qualities of this comrade that contributes to our understanding of what that name should look like, and we shall see if Tiffany and the village, if you will, can unite with this identity. So Comrade Luizi, and we also had help in doing this with Comrade M. Kask in Kenya, who's located in Kenya. So Comrade, yeah.
Okay. You know, we have come up with 3 names, and you know the meaning, you know, is really important. And the first thing I noticed, as the chairman said, when I saw her, I say, this sister looks more than serious. That's the first thing that struck me. So, and thinking about that, and we got 3 names. The first name is Ayanda.
Ayanda.
Ayanda means we are many. As you can see, we got many security around here. And the second name
Where
is
does it come from?
Ayanda is Shona in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second name is Anye Koi. Anye means steps, Koi is leopards. Leopard steps.
Walks like the leopard.
Because leopards is serious. And the last name is Shetangai. That's Shona also means to protect. So if you put everything together, is that we are many, we got many steps of leopards to protect. Protect the park. So that's the full meaning. Ayanda Anyekoi Shengetai.
Ayanda Anekoi
Shengeta.
Shengeta.
Shengetai. Yes, sir.
And I want, like Luizi, English is Luizi's 3rd language. And, you know, like when we say, no. Is it Anyekoi? I can't see. Anyekoi. It says leopard steps, but like walks like the leopard. You understand? Moves, walks like the leopard. And that's what we're talking about. That's who this comrade is. And as Luizi was saying earlier, that you don't often hear the leopard, you never hear the leopard. And when you look up. It's too late.
It's too late. We have to look, but it's too late. That's what making any noise at all. Yeah. Yeah. And,
That sounds like this comrade.
and there's no miss.
So I don't know, Comrade Ayanda, do you accept this?
Yes, I accept. I'm overexcited. Yes, I just want to say that, I mean, I'm just so excited.
Right.
Just overwhelmed with joy. I just would have never even thought that I would be here right now, just with you all, and I'm just so honored to be here and just to be a part of the best working class African nation that I could ever be a part of. Just have taught me so much. I'm so grateful for my leadership, Chimaranga, you know, just for just teaching me discipline, you know, giving me structure, you know, giving me the cure of like all the problems that I ever faced with, that I never had an understanding, that I always thought that it was just like a family traditional curse, but understanding that I'm colonized and, you know, just the oppression that's up on our people, and just, you know, giving me the line of self-determination, you know, self-reliance, and just to, you know, build a better future for myself and our kids and my kids and everybody.
So many of us know her. Many of us have just met her, seen her, and what have you. And does this seem to be a name that is fitting for this? So, Comrade Tiffany is dead, and now we have a rebirth, and this is Comrade Ayanda henceforth. Uhuru. Uhuru. Uhuru, Comrade.
Thank you, Chairman.
Well, Ayanda.
Yes.
now we have to get through these slides. Well, that's powerful.
Yes, and I want to say that I appreciate Chairman and DC Owner so much too.
Yeah.
You know, I do. I really do. I can't just leave y'all out, but I thank y'all for everything. You know, for just working so hard and just being an example and dedicating y'all life to this. Thank you.
So, Comrade Ayanda and I will be doing a security workshop, and it's being done in the context of a world that is very dangerous for African people. Every day, the colonial police murder Africans in the street. The capitalist colonialists bomb and send drones to, you know, they have a new kind of warfare. Now they fight from the air and send drones to kill you. And all of these things raise the question of how the Vanguard Party will be protected. We won't go into a lot of detail about structure of the security forces. That's some classified information. However, we do want to talk about how internally we protect ourselves, and some simple things that we are going to go back to about your rights. The other thing that struck me, since we've been at this Congress, there has already been security violations, breaches by the security forces, but also by other party members. And it's interesting because we added a section on what we do when we travel, security for travel, and that particular breach had to do with traveling in rental cars and that kind of stuff. So it was very timely that we put that piece in there. So what we're going to be doing is Tiffany and I are going to be kind of all.
Ayana.
Tiffany left the building. Ayanda.
Yes.
It will be alternating the slides. Tiffany was really Ayanda was really excited. Ayanda was really Ayanda was really excited about Ayanda. Ayanda. Okay. Ayanda, I got it. So I just wanted to just say those things in the overview, Tiffany. I mean, Ayanda. So hit me every time I say Ayanda. Ayanda is going to be saying some things from her notes. So we won't be going through this verbatim. Okay. But she will be saying some things every other slide. So
how can our membership enhance our overall security? We want all of our membership to be security conscious. Being security conscious, it works on two different levels. You want to be like conscious of yourself, and then you want to be conscious of your department.
So when the department secures itself, and this is where people like DC Owner come in really important in this process, because building protocols and procedures are actually a security measure as well. Because when people don't follow procedures, they are accountable to that. And it allows us to raise the question of, well, are procedures not being followed because somebody is trying to wreck the work, or is it not being followed because they're not trained properly? But that is a security issue when you have people who are just being reckless, being outside of the performance standards that we set for our organization. Next slide, Tiff.
Okay.
I mean, Ayanda. Ayanda.
Okay. The department members' knowledge of procedures. So the members of each department should be knowledgeable of the procedures in their department, because with us having procedures in place for your department, it lets you know when somebody is not carrying out the work or the task that they're supposed to be doing. So when you see something not going the way that it's supposed to, it raises a red flag, and it lets you know that something,
Next slide, too. So, Ayanda, just kick me if I say it. So Ayanda, are we to the simple things slide?
Okay.
Yeah, it should say simple.
It's all right. So simple things can mean something big.
Yeah, and when we say that, we mean stuff like what your desk looks like actually is a security issue. Because if you have your desk piled this high with paper and you don't know what's in there, that's the problem. You don't know what's in there. So you don't know what's supposed to be there, and you don't know what shouldn't be there. So you have to keep your desk, even things like your desk, in an orderly manner so you'll know what's supposed to be there and what shouldn't be there. That's important, because if somebody's putting stuff there, that's dangerous. But if somebody's taking things like sign-in sheets, that kind of stuff. Even you know it's supposed to be there, but you got it piled in this chaos, you're not gonna know anything has been removed. So that's important.
Pete, you touched bases on it. Members' awareness about discussions that should raise a red flag. If somebody particular, like people in our party, if they raises any of these following questions, the National Security Office should be notified. How many guns we have? Like if someone asks, raise a question on like, if we have guns, that's something that you should contact Chimaranga about. How much money the organization has or where the money's coming from.
Also things like carrying out adventurous acts. Let's go rob the store. And believe me, some crazy stuff has happened like that. But you shouldn't take it lightly. When people start even approaching you with foreign political lines, are they trying to recruit from another organization? You have to ask yourself that question, but go a step further, you have to report that because that's a security issue. Is somebody inside the organization as a mole trying to recruit, trying to wreck the organization? And when people start raising foreign political lines, and when I say foreign political lines, a line that is not African internationalism. We're an African internationalist organization, so that's what they should be discussing. So if they're discussing integration and the great white working class, that's should raise a flag. So that's what we're talking about here. I think that was yours too.
Okay, so be the person who is aware of the unusual. Like if someone comes in, to one of our meetings and they you could just tell in people body language. Well, we want us to be conscious of like people body language. Like if a speaker up and they turn all the way around from the speaker and we have had this happen at one of our Sunday rallies. They come in and they just turn their seat around and, opposite way from what the speaker is speaking, like something is wrong with this person. Being loud or just trying to carry out an act, or even I know just the other day, someone had came and was refusing to get wand, but they know that each time they come to our event that we wand. So for you to come this time, and not want to get wand, we know that like that should raise a red flag that something is going on with this person, or who sent them, or why you trying to disrupt our event.
So to add to that, when people come into a meeting and they're being wanded and they're all jawed up, it's obvious that they're pissed off about something already. That's a red flag. Why is somebody pissed off before they even heard a word? Why is their body language showing that it's hostility? People sometimes come to our meetings with mental issues. Somebody talking to themselves, that raises a flag. We have to pay attention to that. So the security people are alerted. The whole audience is alerted. Everybody has to be aware of that. The security is not going to catch everything, but now we're saying that the audience also has a responsibility to notify security when they see these odd things going on.
Some social media conduct can be dangerous. Social media is very important, even when it seems innocent or personal. You never want to express like your feelings on Facebook, like how much you love somebody or, how you feeling, because the state, they're reviewing Facebook all the time and they can, try to put an attack on somebody. They know that you love this person and they're going to try to go get this person to see how much they could pay them to, sell you out. We just don't know the extent, so we never want to express those feelings on Facebook. And even when you're going out of town, you don't want to go on Facebook and let people know like that you're leaving town, because you're leaving yourself open to burglars to be able to come and invade your house, or even the state, to come in to place something there, to come back to put attack on you. So we just don't want to put any of our emotional state of mind on Facebook either. Like, it's a struggle that we trying to build for this event. People can take that wrong. Not really knowing what we engaged into. So you just have to be very, very mindful of what you put on Facebook about your feelings.
I just want to reiterate what Ayanda is saying. Ayanda is saying. Because we've had more than one incident where somebody posted something on Facebook and it came back to bite us in the butt. I don't care if it's your personal page. See, from my point of view, your personal life is your political life too. You only got one life. There is no personal and political life. So just because you go home and take off your beret, that doesn't mean that you are not a political force, not an African internationalist. So you don't go home and then say, now I'm just Joe Blow and I'm going to write all this stuff on Facebook. Even rantings against other people, be it positive or negative. We can't do that. And I'm glad that Comrade Akile is worked on we worked on it together in terms of the social media protocols for what can be posted on our site. Sometimes we've even had situations where people posted stuff on our own sites that was wrong. That is a problem. If the state is going to get intelligence, make them work for it. Don't give it to them for free. And that's what you're doing if you posting on Facebook any of the things that we just said. That's what you're giving the state. Because what they are doing is creating personality profiles. They're creating behavioral profiles. That's why you don't get up in the morning and talking about I'm depressed on Facebook. They're depressed. What should we do about that? I'm telling you, you are setting yourself up for an attack. If you go on Facebook expressing your emotional states on Facebook, this is a very dangerous situation that's being created. So Comrade Anyanda is exactly right. I think she is, she's exemplary, by the way. I wanted Ayanda to do this workshop because I think she holds up the highest standards of security. And, the chairman recognized that early on. So, next slide.
Security when you were visited by the FBI. So what you need to do when you're visited by the FBI is don't open your door. You never want to open your door. You want to talk to them through your door, And you never want to let them in unless they have a search warrant, a warrant that they got to show you. And your first response should be, am I up underneath arrest? And the next question that you ask is, am I being detained? And if they answer no to both of those questions, you ask them, can they please leave the premises?
So it's really important that you follow what Ayanda is saying. However, there are instances when they do have a warrant. either an arrest or a search warrant. Now, many times search warrants have limitations to where they can search. It might say this warrant is for the bedroom of the house at whatever address. In those cases, you should continue to repeat, I am not agreeing to this search. And you, to the extent you can, you want to make sure they don't go outside the search limitation. If it's the bedroom, they shouldn't be in the kitchen. Now, if they have an arrest warrant and you are arrested, they may let you make a phone call, but that phone call should be to the movement. That's how you get the process going of getting a lawyer and getting this thing dealt with. So we don't want to, I'll tell you a stupid thing I did one time. The FBI came to my mother's house and they started asking all kinds of stupid questions. And you know what I did? I engaged them because I wanted to be witty. I wanted to engage them in a battle of wits. No. They won. The fact that I engaged them meant that they got exactly what they wanted. Even though I called myself being hostile to them, they got what they wanted because this is an intelligence gathering organization. That's what they do. They didn't come to arrest me. They came to find things out. And they found some stuff out. So we can't make that mistake. In these dangerous times, the likelihood that you will be in contact with state agents and the secret political police of the state grows higher and higher. There was a sister, now I don't want you to do this, there was a sister who had joined the party a couple of years ago, and she found out the FBI had visited her mother. We ain't seen her since. It is not something you should be panicked about because that's what the state does. We're not dealing with social workers here. We're dealing with the state, a dangerous and violent organization. So,
I just think it's important to have this discussion and participated in making the determination that we should have a discussion about security. And we're having this discussion not for you to be frightened by this, or because most people are never conscious of being in contact with the FBI or intelligence organizations or anything like that, which is not to say you're not in contact with them. Because the fact is that very often what we find is that the government will use all kinds of forces for intelligence, from taxi cab drivers to prostitutes who are in the community. There are certain sectors of the population who have to have a certain relationship with the state in order to exist, in order to function, in order to be pimps and prostitutes and things like that. There's one of the reasons you were seeing most of our communities, the people who are most engaged in what is defined as criminal activity, from drug pushers to prostitutes to pimps and what have you. It's not unusual to see when the cops are there with them standing with their heads in the police car, always talking to the cops and things like that. And we've found it to be particularly true, with white women prostitutes who move throughout our communities and stuff like that, particularly true. And I'm not saying they're hired agents or something like that, but in order for them to function, the police have a especially high level of contempt for them on the one hand, and recognize them as people in the community but not of the community. And so they become reservoirs of information that they pass on. It's just really important for you to understand that the state is the enemy, and that enemy is more than just a cop on the beat, not more than just Darren Wilson who killed Mike Brown. It's the whole apparatus that's there to make sure that we don't win our freedom. So it's not an innocent thing that we're talking about. We're talking about people who've taken on a very serious responsibility. That is being in the movement, that in order to win our freedom, we're going up against the state. Whether you're aware of it or not, you need to be aware of it. Most of the people who are engaged in these movements, who block highways and stuff like that for thrills, who talk stuff all the time, are not aware of this whole issue and concept of the state. The state is an organization of coercion. It exists for the purpose of maintaining the status quo. It's there to maintain the status of poverty, oppression, homelessness, joblessness, disease that exists in our community. That's what the state is there for. And then here you are trying to get rid of homelessness, poverty, joblessness, and disease, etc., which is going against the status quo. That's why you come into the party. That's why you join the movement. And it's just important to say, if there is an oppressed, there is an oppressor. The oppressed don't oppress themselves. And that's one of the things that distinguishes us as the African People's Socialist Party. We recognize the existence of an oppressor. And the oppressor uses various kinds of means in order to maintain their relationship and their power of the Donald Trumps and all of the others. They can't do it. Donald Trump is a punk. There's no way you could get Donald Trump to walk through this community by himself as the sun is going down. He wouldn't do it. The state power that he has with him makes it possible. It makes him arrogant enough to do it most of the time. And even the state agents have problems doing it under certain circumstances. That's why they're terrified. That's why they shoot, etc. When they said I shot him because I was scared, they're telling the truth. They're scared as hell when they come here. So it's just really important for us to understand that and not to be frightened. I want to say, I don't know if Comrade Chimarenga and Ayanda were prepared to just deal with this aspect of it. Historically, when we look at the state and how they move with groups like ours, like organizations like ours, and it can be insidious. I know of one occasion where a man who led an organization that believed in the whole thing about the Negro Nation and stuff like that, and who had built a relatively meaningful organizational presence in this country. And what the government did was they waited for him to be in a situation similar to what I'm in now, talking to you, and then they came and marched in and arrested him for something like, what do you call it, when you don't, the fathers who don't pay, what do you call it? Child support, and so that, they didn't have to do that then. The thing to do it then was to help to destroy the movement, destroy the confidence of the people in this leader. We've known of instances with the group, the Student for Democratic Society, which was a white kind of organization where the state actually got a woman and infected her with a venereal disease, and then seduced one of the leaders of the organization who was married to another leader of the organization, and he contracted the venereal disease and passed it on to her. That helped the organization a hell of a lot. You can imagine that. We've seen the state would do things like in the Palestinian Liberation Organization. They had a situation where a woman who was an agent of the settler state of Israel, who lived with this guy for years and years and had babies by him. Do you understand what I'm saying? That had babies by him. She was executed by the Palestinian movement, but the state is insidious. It has no consciousness or anything like that. That's what we're up against. We protect our forces. That's what you're here for. That's what the advanced detachment is about. And this is what makes it likely for the state to be looking at us and want to do things to undermine you, to scare your parents, to scare friends who love you and stuff like that, so that they can push you into not being in the movement. We're having this discussion now because they are not all knowing. The part of what what they try to do is give you the impression that they're all knowing and all seeing and they know everything. They don't know shit. That's my experience with them. I have disappeared in plain view. I knew they were looking for me because as soon as I voluntarily turned myself into jail, they showed up. They couldn't find me right where I was located. And so they really don't know anything. And that's what it is. It's why it's really important for us. Don't talk. Don't give them stuff. As Comrade Chimarenga was saying, we don't give it to them. If they're going to do something, make them work for it. So traditionally, there have been three methods by which the state has attempted to mess with peoples and organizations like us. And they were able to do it effectively for a period of time because we didn't have this kind of discussion that we're having now. And so people were not prepared for it, and people were panicked by it and frightened by it and didn't, et cetera. And so we're saying, don't panic, don't be frightened, because the state doesn't want you to be free. And so there's some possibility that they'll come to your house. I didn't even know the extent that they were breaking into my office, and I didn't know it. And I found out when we got boxes and boxes using the Freedom of Information Act. We got boxes and boxes of stuff, intelligence stuff, and a lot of it turned out to be just newspaper clippings. And that I made them work because I had newspapers stacked up to the ceiling because I'd go through newspapers, I'd date them and say what newspaper, and then make clippings. And then in these files they had were photos of newspaper clippings that with my handwriting, that I had done with. So they're constantly doing things. That's why what Comrade Chimarenga said about knowing your residence, not just your office, not just your desk, but to have enough order in your situation. So if you walk into your situation, you can tell if something has been done there, something has been disturbed. You can tell if something there that shouldn't be there. You can tell if something is missing from that. You need to have that kind of ability. So there are three things that they usually do. One, there's the actual paid, trained agent in the employ of the state, that they use this person. And then there is the informant, who may or may not be a trained, paid, actual person in the employ. And the informant, that's the responsibility of just collecting information. They come to your meetings. They pretend to be your friends. They pretend to love the people. They're some of the worst vermin that you can think of. And sometimes they are with us. And they may or may not be an agent. And then there's a provocateur, which makes some of what this comrades were talking about so important too, because the provocateur is the one that's going to do this crazy stuff that can get everybody killed or can make people hate us because of some action that they took, that can be the ones who, like with the Black Panther Party and the brother who ended up, William O'Neill, who participated in getting Fred killed, who turned over to the FBI a drawing of the housing and where Fred slept. So when they came in, they knew exactly. They shot through the walls into his bed. These are real vermin. This is the provocateur. He's the one who came up with the plot. Let's do a bomb this place and that place, etc. Let's create an electric chair because I think this guy's a snitch, and let's connect this guy to the electric chair and torture him and make him talk. And this is the kind of stuff that provocateurs do. Looking like the movement. This is why some comrade we were talking about earlier, they would go on the social media and they would put up crazy stuff that would embarrass the movement, harm the movement, make the people don't want to be associated with the movement, make women say, I don't want to have anything to do with that group, make fathers say, my daughter's not going to be associated with that, make husbands say, but damn if you're going to that meeting with those people like that. Those are provocateurs. And that's why it's so important for us to have these protocols and things like that we have to adhere to. So we see somebody breaking out of that, then that makes us suspicious. Because if you ain't the police, you ought to join the police because you're acting like the police and you ought to get paid for it. You understand? This is the kind of thing that we're talking about. So we're not saying be scared of them. We're just saying know them. Know them, because they spend all this time trying to know you. They want to know you as an individual. They create psychological profiles. Don't put that stuff on Facebook. If you like her, then like her, and then knock on the door and tell her you like her. Don't be somebody who can't, do it and all this stuff. But those people 7,000 miles away who you have never seen and who you click on and say, those are not your friends. You don't know them. They don't know you. You understand? That's BS. You know, so don't do that. They are trying to remove you from contact with other human beings. That's cyberspace. You don't even know if there's a real person on the other side of that thing that you just friended. I got 3,000 friends. What the hell are you talking about? You don't even know your next door neighbor, and you're talking about 3,000 friends and what have you. Don't do that. And come back. That's what we're saying. Come back. They're sending you on a wild goose chase. And so we organize in our community. Know your next door neighbor. Knock on a door. Become an organizer. Know your precinct. Know the block that you're working in. Know the people on the campus quarter where you are located. Know those people. And that's what's going to win and build for us, as opposed to the stuff that they give you to let them know exactly who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking, when you're thinking it, if you're thinking it, how you feel. This is madness. Put naked pictures of yourself out and on social media. Why would you do that?
Why?
You know? And unless you're some kind of, what do you call it, a voyeurism and stuff like that. And you should, if you are, you should express your illness under other circumstances. You know, I mean, just get you a close-knit group of friends and know them for a while, and then and then, you know, take them off. Take it off. Take it all off. You understand? But yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say that they don't know everything. That even during the time when we would be on the telephone, and they had the technology to be on there with you without you knowing it, they click it. They let you know. You hear click. They let you know. So you're always paranoid. After a while, you put yourself in jail. You know, you won't do anything because you're afraid that this is they can all seeing, all knowing. They don't know shit. You understand? And we shouldn't help them know. Certainly they don't know any more than what we help them and allow them to know. That's why we're doing this right now. So that you don't be afraid of them. You know them. And we can be, you know what you know? You know that the guy who just went to the Supreme Court is a sniveling punk, you understand, or who is a rapist, a vomit. This guy, you know, who in his country club antics and what have you, that's supposed to be an embarrassment to men. That's the bourgeoisie. And you see how cowardly these guys are. So they don't know a damn thing. You see Mueller, the head of the FBI, who's cringing, 7 feet tall almost. You understand? Cringing before that orange guy in the White House. Cringing, can't even stand up to his full stature. They had more. I've seen guys who are little filling station hold-up artists with more guts and courage in terms of standing up to the state than they have. So they're not all that. That's one thing that's really important for us to understand, and that's why we're doing this study. Uhuru.
You remember where you were, young?
I really appreciate that, Chairman, for just deepening that for us. Security, when the police come to your house, it's basically the same, but it's a little different. When the police comes to your house, you really want to be mindful, be conscious of the Miranda warning, to just shut your mouth, remain silent, that's your right, because a lot of times, we could get in fear. We want to start explaining, and just like Chimaranga said, we want them to work for it. Like Chairman said, they don't know anything, so you don't have to be like, oh, I'm innocent, because you're innocent until you're proven guilty anyway. So the only questions that you want to ask is to if you're underneath arrest, and are you being detained? And if they answer no to both of those questions, you ask, can you either leave, or you want your encounter with the police to be as brief and short as possible. If it's you getting pulled over, you want to go ahead and get the ticket. You want to know what it is that they there for. Go ahead and get it and go and get out the situation, get away from them. We want to make it out. We don't want to engage into a battle with them. A back and forth, you just want to end it soon as possible.
Tiffany, Ayanda mentioned Miranda. Does everybody know what Miranda warning is? You've probably seen it on TV 1,000 times. A Miranda warning is when the police say, you have the right to remain silent. What you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you want an attorney will be provided for you if you can't afford one. That's a Miranda warning. So that's what Ayanda was talking about. Now, they might put it in those Miranda warning terms, but it's the right, essentially the right to remain silent and the right to have an attorney. For some reason, and I heard a discussion between a sister from the neighborhood and the police yesterday. She was saying, if somebody comes to my house again, I'm gonna shoot them. And I said, whoa. I was like, sis, you talking to the police, you know that, right? I said, you can't talk to them about that. It was like, no, don't do that. Because many times when people get arrested, they put themselves in jail. If the white people say you got the right to remain silent, then take it. Even if they arrest you, I'll tell you a favorite tactic of the police. Tell me your side of the story.
I want a lawyer.
That's the answer to that question. Tell me your side of the story, Ayanda.
I want a lawyer.
You have to keep repeating that because too many people lock themselves up by giving information that they shouldn't give. Stop talking so much. When the people say you got the right to remain silent, remain silent. Call the movement so they can get you a lawyer. Let your lawyer do the talking. You shouldn't be talking to the police, giving them anything. I know of an actual incident where a party member not only gave the police statements, he wrote it down. He did a witness statement. Of course, he got locked up and charged with a felony. That doesn't mean you're not going to get locked up if you don't talk to them. But don't give them anything. You can't just hand them your body and hand yourself over to them. And that's what you do if you talk to the police. You don't have to do that. So when they say we're reading you Miranda, by the way, every time the police read Miranda, or Mirandize you as they call it, that doesn't mean you're going to get arrested. It just means that an arrest is possible. So you might get arrested and you might not. So don't think just because they give you Miranda and they don't arrest you immediately, that doesn't mean that an arrest is not imminent. You could still get arrested even if they don't do it immediately and say you're under arrest. What they're gonna do is say, now tell me your side of the story. And then you're going to say, I need a lawyer. The first thing you're going to say is, am I under arrest? No. Am I being detained? No. Well, I'm leaving. They have no other reason to hold you if you're not being detained, if you're not under arrest, then you can leave. They don't have a reason to hold you there. Now, they'll use all kinds of tactics saying, well, if you didn't have something to hide, you would tell us your side of the story. That's not the question for us. The question for us is we're not going to get ourselves locked up by giving the police information. Where are we at?
Some important security measures while traveling. What's this room? So basically, while we're traveling, we want to be mindful of our conduct, like on the road. And anytime we traveling, we want to, have a security plan. set in place before we even go on the road, and, you know, just brief everyone through our security plan, like typically like who the drivers are, making sure that everybody on the trip is a licensed driver. We don't want anybody driving, you know, that's not licensed and to get stopped on the road. The only person that should be talking if it is a situation to where we get pulled over or something is the driver. The passenger shouldn't say anything. The only person that should be talking is the driver in this situation.
Just to reiterate what Ayanda is saying, when you have an encounter, when you're getting stopped by the police, your objective is to end that encounter as quickly as possible. What that means is if the pig said you were speeding and I'm going to give you a ticket, take the ticket, sign it, and go. You're not to argue back with them. Oh, no, I wasn't speeding, blah, blah, blah. Because that's not ending the encounter. What you're doing is escalating it for them to say, oh, this is somebody finna get their head beat. You're not to escalate that contradiction. Take the ticket and go. You want to end the encounter as quickly as possible. And I know of instances where that's not been the case, and it could have gotten really dangerous. Middle of the night, sister stopped by the Georgia Highway Patrol. They say you're speeding. She says, no, I'm not. Her mother is a passenger in the car, and her mother starts to intervene and says, oh, no, she wasn't speeding. So the pig said, get out of the car. Come to the back of the car. That could have been a deadly encounter. And I was like, no, don't ever do that. If the man says you're speeding and he's giving you a ticket, take the ticket and let him go on about his way. So, Chairman, you had something else?
Yeah, I think that a difference in this might be, I think it's important to say that we don't want to go to jail unless we plan it. There may be circumstances under which we plan to go to jail. Because sometimes in our communities, pigs are terrorists and stuff like that, and they have a whole community that's terrorized and frightened. And sometimes we will say, okay, we got to bust this up and give examples of standing up to them so that the people, so that we lead the people to know that you shouldn't be afraid and punked out by just these characters. And so we plan that. That's what, and when we're at our best, we plan that. If we have an opportunity, we'll plan it. And I have gone to jail, and sometimes it wasn't planned. I was walking through Chimaranga, remember this, I'm sure, in St. Petersburg, Florida, where the police arrogantly, they had these young Africans sitting on the bumper of their cars, and they were taking information out from every one of them. And I intervened. What did they do? Why are you doing this? Why are you messing with them? Et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the reason they were doing that, they were just, they call it proactive policing. They just, their objective was to get information, identification of every African male in that city. And so that's what they were involved in doing. And I busted it up and created a problem for them, so they arrested me for disturbing the peace or something to that effect. And we need to have the ability, and we need to have organizers on the streets. And we know the communities that we're working in, and sometimes we may have a policy of busting up that kind of stuff and if necessary, going to jail, so that the people, we wreck their ability to intimidate the masses of the people. So there are also going to be circumstances under which the police will see us and want to punk us in front of the masses so that they can use that as an example and say, this is what your leadership looks like, or something to that effect. And we may have to treat that differently. Also, I want to say that when traveling a lot, the police will often stop you. They'll even do it in your community and say, can I search your vehicle? I say, hell no, you can't search my vehicle. Well, if you got nothing to hide, I don't want you to search my vehicle. We've seen them actually handcuff people and viciously and violently do it anyway, but you can't do that. The one thing is about this whole issue that we're talking about in terms of security. We don't assume that we can get security by surrendering all of the basic democratic space and rights that we've given them. Once you start surrendering that space, you can't recapture it. If you've got an entire community where they know that they can mess with you a certain way and there's not going to be some kind of response or pushback, even just fighting for the democracy on the democratic tip, that's a place you don't want to be in. You've got to try to keep that democratic space open. You've got to try to fight for free speech, or the right to speak, the right to be on the corner or in the community where you want to be. So this is going to conflict in some ways with the whole notion of securing yourself by ending that, because typically that's what we want to do. Typically, we want to end any contact we have with the state arms. Typically, that's what we want to do, but sometimes, and perhaps depending on the communities that we're working in and what our general tasks happen to be in that community, encountering the state might be the objective that we establish for ourselves. To be able, the people in this community have a lot of growing confidence in us by what they see, the stature that we seem to represent, et cetera. And of course, that can be reflected in a lot of different ways, but this is something that we should always consider when we're talking about ending encounters with the state, because we don't want that. And we don't, when you're driving, especially by yourself or just a handful of us, you don't want that. I should tell you a story quickly. There was a group of us traveling from St. Petersburg to Gainesville, Florida, in an old Volkswagen bus, which was at one juncture a favorite mode of transportation. And we were going to, out in the country, to this makeshift firing range that we had developed, and where we would engage in like military trainings and practices. And on the floor of the Volkswagen bus was a host of guns, right? So for some reason, we stopped on the interstate. And this bus, sometimes it wouldn't start by itself. You had to push start it or something to that effect. So we stopped on the interstate. And while we were there, a highway patrol guy pulled up. And we got guns all over the floor in this damn vehicle. So this is going to be serious. You understand? It had all kinds of potential for being serious. But we were really nice to this guy. And he was nice to us. Because if we weren't nice to him, and he confronted us with a floor full of guns, then I wouldn't be here. He wouldn't be here. It was going to be a real serious situation. So, I mean, we were not protective of our rights and all that stuff or anything. And then the bigger problem was, we said, okay, you can go. And the bus wouldn't start. But we just happened to be up on a slight grade. But the cop's car was parked behind us. So I said, well, can you back up a little bit so that, I could, we can pop the clutch in reverse and start the vehicle. And it started, and we were able to get out of there. So there are some exceptions to these rules that we're talking about. But I think it's really important, because you will hear members of the NAACP and other kinds of groups like that telling you about it. encounters with the police, and they tell you, just do what the police say, and just do this and that, and they want to turn us into a community of cowards, and that will surrender what are basic democratic rights that's enjoyed by the white people, et cetera. But you don't have the right to walk down the street. You don't have the right to be, any place. You don't have the right to free speech. You can't say anything to the pig. You can't, there was a time where the white people would say, hell, you work for me. You understand? And but now they say everybody, the pigs are now what do they call these people? The so-called heroes and stuff like that. Like they make the pigs and the other pigs who they send to other countries, killing people and stuff, that some kind of heroes that they're supposed to be. That's what the cops are now. But don't give them that space. You can't. And every opportunity that we get that, we need to call them out. When I say call them out, I mean we do demonstrations, we do other things, and all this stuff about these. I killed them because I was afraid of my life. I'm afraid for my life. Then become a nurse. Take up knitting. Do something else. But, you can't run around, with guns talking about you killing people because you're scared. This is the most dangerous job, and it ain't. It's one of the least dangerous jobs in the country. They say that stuff. It's one of the, if you want to find dangerous jobs, do them construction workers up there on them buildings. Do the fishers, the people who go out and catch fish and stuff like that's dangerous. What these guys are doing is nothing. They got tons of guns and arms and a whole network of other pigs that's always there with them. We have to destroy that myth, you understand, and say that people like Tamir Rice had more guts than the police. You come in, he should be scared. You got the damn guns. You come shoot him. You scared of the 11 or 12-year-old kid with a play gun, and he's not afraid of you. Who is the real hero under these kinds of circumstances? Another story. Hold on.
Can we get a time check?
15 minutes over.
We're 15 minutes over.
Excuse me, 17 minutes over.
Okay, we're gonna push it through. I just want to mention a couple of other things about travel. Ayanda mentioned that you have to create your security plan and brief everybody, all the passengers who are gonna be on that trip, brief them on that security plan. Everybody should have a copy of it who was riding in that vehicle. Ayanda was saying only the person who is driving talks to the police, and I want to reiterate that. And part of the briefing that the security person does is make sure everybody is aware there are no drugs or weapons allowed on that trip. And that might seem small, but you need to tell people no illegal drugs or weapons are allowed on this vehicle. You have to continue to tell them that because you don't want to get in a situation where you get stopped and then it's a oops. Yeah. So we want to make sure everybody understands that. So I'm going to go ahead and sum this up. And one, I want to appreciate the chairman and his intervention. I thought it was really important. There are some parts of security that we did not mention. For example, it's going to be more and more important as we go forward. What do you do at the airport while you're traveling, doing air travel? All kinds of other issues in terms of air travel. Cybersecurity. We're getting some headway on that because Agitation and Propaganda and Director Akile is working on a cybersecurity manual. We will, as the security forces, we need to be deeply involved in that. And also, we want to, going forward, reinstate this whole question about every department having a security liaison, somebody in your department who's been trained on security. So they're your eyes in your department. So they can report things. They can also be part of the monthly meetings that we're going to be calling for with security. So we can just get a briefing on what's going on in the department. What are the issues, security issues in the department? And I think that's a really good move forward for Agitation and Propaganda on the cybersecurity issue. So we're going to wrap this up. I guess we don't have time for question and answers. We need to convene the hearing for Walia Brooks. The timekeeper is telling me we do not. At 10:15, we were supposed to start the hearing for Walia, and she's standing by. So
Is it possible, after this hearing, perhaps if there's space after the hearing, to have more discussion around security?
tell me something agenda-wise. Okay. The chairman said it's possible. It's possible.
You're on to lunch, so.
It's possible, because Chairman said it.
Yeah, the chairman said it's possible, so. All right, so, can the reinstatement commission come to the front? That's a Kinge, Haas, Chiwaniso, and we need a table as quickly as we can get it up here.
I want to try from the computer.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we're getting prepared for the hearing for Walia Brooks. Take your seats. Get in your seats, please. We only have 30 minutes to make this happen, so people need to get seated.
Can you hear me now?
Uhuru.
I can hear you. I can hear.
Okay, all right, so everybody is in place, Walia is in place, and this is the hearing on appeal for Walia Brooks. On yesterday, I announced that we would have to move her hearing to today. She wasn't able to appear on yesterday. We will have her via phone, so she can hear you and she will be, she can hear us. So we will make sure, yes, okay, we will make sure that we go through this process and let Walia make her statement. Before we do that, though, Chiwaniso is going to be reading some information from the file on Walia, some of the stuff that we gathered, and then we'll move forward and let Walia make her statement if she has any supporting statement to the one that we're going to read from her, and then she will get off the phone and then we can vote. So with no further ado, I need to call up Chiwaniso. And Chiwaniso is going to use the file to give us some information so we can make an informed decision. Yes, and you need to read the statement that she
Uhuru. I'm going to start with reading the statement that Walia submitted to this commission for reinstatement. My name is Walia Brooks, and I'm writing this request for reinstatement into the African People's Socialist Party. In January of 2015, I abandoned the assignments that were given to me by leadership Omali Yeshitela due to my subjectivity. Not only did I abandon the work I was assigned to do, I was disrespectful to Chairman Omali Yeshitela during a conference call meeting that included mass forces, and disrespectful to Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela during a meeting of the NCC. I am self-critical for my actions. My actions were deeply rooted in my subjective nature, which goes against party discipline and obstructs the work to be done for the liberation of the African working class. I have a subjective need to always be right in my actions. I often hide behind the work or excuses to escape criticism or scrutiny. To this end, my subjective nature at times causes me to have unprincipled struggles with my comrades and leadership and to be disrespectful. Doing the work of Impedum and the party and speaking with my direct leadership, I realized that there will always be contradictions, that any criticisms raised aren't a direct personal attack to my character or work ethic, but a necessary tool to root out what isn't working and to move the work forward. The basis of this request is that I have addressed and am working on the errors that caused me to get expelled in the first place. For the last year and a half, I have been working under the leadership of Impedum President Kalambai in whatever task she asked me to do. My work has not been without contradictions. At times, I still let my subjectivity be in the center. Through PE and discussions, I understand that I cannot be subjective. It puts me on the wrong side of the political question and causes unnecessary struggles when time and energy should be directed to the work ahead of us. I'm applying for reinstatement because the APSP has a to what end. It explains the core contradiction of why African people live under the conditions they live in. Also, the work of the APSP speaks to the material interests of the African working class. The party doesn't just talk about what's wrong. Party forces are actively trained on how to overturn these issues. I know that I must bring my skills to the people. There is nothing else out there for me and my children. I am self-critical for my subjectivity and committed to the work of the APSP, overturning my contradictions and trusting the process. I realize that the work is not about me. I'm not building myself up, but carrying out the strategies laid out in the political reports created by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I believe in African internationalism. I believe in unite with a party code of conduct. I am ready to commit myself to the work of the APSP. And also, in making our recommendations, some of the things that we reviewed with Comrade Walia were emails, Facebook messages, and we also had a statement that was made by Walia's current leadership that was reviewed. And just to kind of sum it up, because some of the information is a little long, what we still seen with this comrade through what we reviewed is just still a tendency to be subjective. Everyone agreed that this comrade does do work within the movement, but the subjectivity is still very present. We've seen that recently with email communications between myself and this comrade where subjectivity was displayed and just in a struggle to get reports in and to get the work forwarded for the Congress. We've had instances with subjectivity within the IEC. But outside of that, again, we do say that the comrade, as she said, she does do the work, but we still see a struggle with leadership. We still see a kind of do-it-yourself kind of politic with leadership. And I don't know if there was anything else that I needed to speak to that anybody would be interested in hearing, but that's pretty much the summation of what we've seen through what we researched. Uhuru.
So you heard the statement, the submission that was made by Walia, but we're going to also let her give any supporting statements that she wants to give. And then I'll open up the floor for discussion. I know it was video evidence sent in by President Kalambayi, and I'd like President Kalambayi, after Walia finishes her statement, to just sum up what she was saying in that video. So Walia, are you prepared to make a supporting statement?
I just want to say that I appreciate this process, and that what I said in my statement is that I am self-critical for my subjectivity. That is something that is an issue and stands in the way. But I am committed to following the directives of leadership and do what must be done, do the work that must be done.
So, Chiwiniso, did you have any questions?
The question that I would have is just like in regards to subjectivity, one thing that was said was through political education and discussion, it was being overturned, and I kind of would like to.
A lot of moving around. This is a really important. It's a really important hearing. You can't make an informed decision if you're not hearing.
The question that I had basically was just about the subjectivity, because Comrade Walia said in her statement that it was in her nature. And through our fact finding, we just kind of found that kind of odd that we would say that it's in our nature instead of rooting out the core contradiction of why we're being subjective, which normally is rooted in a petty bourgeoisie stance. And it's normally rooted in an inability to be able to follow the working class. So I would like for Comrade Walia to really deepen for us where the subjectivity comes from so that we can be confident that it can be overturned and it's not something that, as she said, is in her nature, which means that we cannot struggle against nature. Uhuru.
Walia, did you hear that question?
Yes, I heard that question, and
okay.
I unite with the question. Yeah, it is rooted in a petty bourgeoisie stance and being a part of the work world and not wanting to be seen to be not wanting to be seen as not completing the work, not completing assignments, and just this this way of working based on a petty bourgeoisie stance that you work hard, you do what you're supposed to do, and that everything will go well. And so the subjectivity comes from, is rooted in me thinking that I'm doing the task that I'm asked to do, but when contradictions arise or are raised, then it goes back to me thinking that I've done something wrong and that that it should, I don't know, it shouldn't. The fact that I've done something wrong and to be criticized, it comes from a petty bourgeoisie stance that, you know, I've done my work and there should be no criticism, but that's a wrong way of thinking, and the wrong is not the way of the party, and just not even acknowledging that contradictions do happen, but it's not something personal, that I have to acknowledge contradictions and acknowledge criticisms and even do self-criticisms to say that this happened, but to work on what needs to be done to overturn the contradictions.
Haas.
Comrade Walia. One inquiry I have in evidence that was reviewed was this tendency to utilize your work to, I guess, cover your contradictions, to, to absolve, to say that this work is what I've been able to, I completed this work or whatnot, and you use that to, as defense of your contradiction as in subjectivity and otherwise, like just to avoid, being criticized and, your contradictions as well. So, but can you speak onto like, I guess in, I guess the events where that has happened, that has occurred many times on numerous occasions, what have you done to like, to, I guess, avoid doing that, to, to say that, oh, I've done this work, this, that, and other, then, to just avoid, attacking the criticism, but, you're trying to protect your work and no one's attacking your work. They're, they're, they're criticizing the contradiction itself. So what have you, are you cognizant that that is a reoccurring thing and, in your participation in work, Uhuru?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Wally.
yes, I realized that it's not about just me that being comfortable in a spot and saying, well, I've done this and I've done these assignments and I've done what you've asked me to do, because that's a subjective thing to do, because realizing that, even if work has been done, it may not have been done in a good way, or there's still more work to do, or there was contradictions riddled in the work that was done. So just realizing I cannot hide behind and be in a comfortable space of, well, I've done this, so that's it. That's not it. That's the wrong stance. But realizing that, okay, work has been done, but listening to my leadership to understand the next step of the work that should be done.
Kinga? No question. So I wanted to hear from, this is President Kalambayi presented evidence. Oh, K-Fing, I'm sorry. K-Fing, did you have any questions or comment? You're on mute. Uhuru, K-Fing. Okay. So we're not getting any audio from K-Fing. So I would like President Kalambayi and Annette to briefly sum up the video that she sent us. She sent us video evidence, so I wanted her to sum that up.
Uhuru Chimarenga, I had one question before I summed it up.
Okay.
For Comrade Walia. Uhuru Comrade Walia, I just really want to express my appreciation for this process, the party, and for you participating in this process. And I just wanted, before I summed up anything, I had a question regarding
the criticism that you wrote, and I was wondering if you could deepen, because I think that it is the way we speak to leadership and the way you spoke to Chairman Amali Yeshatella, the chairman, on a call that I was on around the Black grand jury, devastated, all mass forces because we didn't really understand what was happening. And I think that's something, if you could deepen that. And also, along with that, I would like to hear you to speak to the gossip that you participated in around Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshatella, because I didn't hear that in that. If you could just speak to those things, because I think those are important. I need to hear and understand your position on those things. So, Uhuru.
Go ahead, Wally.
Okay, so the instance that happened on the Black People's Grand Jury, that was me not, an example of me not following my leadership, of not trusting the process that was set forward. I was given a task to do. Can you hear me?
K-Fing, Walia is responding to some questions, so just hold tight. Go ahead, Walia.
Yeah, I was given a task to do, and again, in my subjective feelings, I felt that I wasn't up to the task, and it was a lot of criticism for it. And so instead of looking to see what I could do to overturn the situation, I just lashed out at Chairman Omali Yeshatella, and so I'm self-critical for that, but just acknowledging that's what happened. And then with the gossip, at the time I didn't realize that I was gossiping. I thought that I was talking to my comrades about a situation, but now I understand now if I did have any questions about the situation, then I should have took it to my leadership instead of discussing it with my other comrades.
Thank you, Walia. K-Fing. Uhuru K-Fing. Okay, so he's not there now. So I want to get the summation from.
K-Fing.
Can you hear me, K-Fing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead. Did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I'll be brief.
Go ahead.
Okay. Come in here and that is when of the class come into this party, into this work, they come in with all sorts of baggage. The party has tried to propose a scientific way of trying to deal with that baggage in the form of criticism, and especially to those comrades who just begin the relationship and say that this is not an antagonistic relationship. Therefore, how do we resolve it? And there was publicly there, well, the protocol, so to speak, of how we resolve these contradictions. Obviously, comrade Juanita wants to do this work, has the ability to do this work. But whether we can get the necessary tools to resolve this contradiction of the subjectivity thing. Because my opinion, I would hate to see Walid come back in this party and not prepared to deal with what she's dealing with right now, and because another expulsion, which will not be good. So what justification we come up with, I think that they should put forward some kind of resolution on how come that was here if you go forward and dealing with this whole contradiction of because I think coming at Kimono, so it is no later thing here. But that would be my take on this. And for us to help this comrade resolve this thing and you know, to take more time for us to do that, and let us do that, because I want to see, I want to see it in this way, because I've seen some of the, you know, some of the things he's made in order to participate in this work. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
Did you want to respond to that at all, Walid? It was a comment, it wasn't a question.
No.
Okay. All right. President Kalambayi.
Uhuru Walid. Again, I just really appreciate this whole process, and I take this very serious, and been looking, you know, had the pleasure of having you on the IEC and working closely with you, and the things that I have observed, you know, with this comrade, that is, the question of her doing work is not a question here, but it is very important that we, it's very important that all of us understand.
Mute your phone, Kefi.
Understand democrat essentialism, because it was a constant attack against democrat essentialism when we talk about disrespect. And the one thing that I had seen when the video that I made was an incident that on the IEC, it was a time where I was criticizing Ushindi around outreach, and you interjected and said that, you know, the criticism was mine because I had not laid out campaigns for Ushindi to take out. And it was like a subjective response of, you know, jumping in front of this criticism for Ushindi, and then, you know, pointing the finger at the leadership. And another incident of when I had told you that it was a lot going on, my schedule was compact, and I had advised you and Fofi to meet, and then I would meet with you around it. 4 Feet United to do that, and you kept struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling to the, you know, and those, you know, those things cannot happen, comrade. Those can't happen. And I just want to make sure that you understand that these are the things that we are speaking to when we're talking about, you know, subjectivity and the constant attack against democratic essentialism. You know, and I also, in my video, express, you know, how much you have been able to bring to the IEC. And in both of those incidents, you did raise a criticism of yourself. You did come back, you know, right after, and, you know, say to me that you were self-critical for both incident, you know, for both situations that I'm speaking of. You raised that criticism of yourself and said that you were self-critical for those things. But those are the things that I had seen in working with you, and, you know, coming back into the work, understanding that, you know, those are the type of things that you have to struggle against. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Walid, did you want to respond to President Kalambayi?
Yes, I want to say that I unite that when it comes down to it, is subjective, but it's essentially going against democratic centralism, and that I unite with what she said, and that no longer can happen.
Uhuru. First of all, I would just want to express my appreciation to this commission that's been responsible for organizing and conducting these hearings, for comrades who are applying for reinstatement to the party after expulsion. I think it's a good process, and it's one that really has been organized and structured in a way to minimize subjectivism, so that this hearing has not been dominated by subjectivism. You said this, we said this, you said, we said, and I think that's extremely important. I think that, and it's transparent. And I think that allows people to have confidence in our party and in this process. And I have worked with Comrade Walia. I don't know if she remembers it, but at a time when Comrade Walia herself assumed that she should not have been appointed the head of NPDUM at one of the conventions that we had. And I took the opportunity at that convention to reappoint her, recognizing what I felt like was really heroic, recognizing the contradictions and limitations, and there were severe contradictions in terms of the development of NPDUM under her leadership, but also that it was a heroic effort I felt she had made with certain limitations of training and experience and what have you, but also the fact that she's a single mother and dealing with at least one child that has serious autistic problems that's extraordinarily difficult. I mean, I recognize that, and she took this on and tried to do the work. So I felt like it was really heroic, and still do. But I really appreciate Comrade Chimoniso. I thought it was really astute observation that you made in terms of this assumption that of some kind of subjective nature, which means it can't be changed if it's in the nature, and it's not nature. And I appreciate the fact that you recognize it as a class stance. And it is a class stance that's been taken. Then, of course, as Comrade K. Fing said, we bring all kind of baggage into this movement and into this party. And the question is whether or not we're willing to struggle with that baggage and overturn it, and whether or not the party offers an opportunity for that to happen. Comrade K. Fing said that he was concerned that this sister coming back into the party not be setting herself up for being expelled again, that she has to be given the equipment and tools. And I think that I don't worry about that. I think this is part of the process of equipping her, that standing up and having to look a contradiction smack dab in the face, and having to make the deepest kinds of self-criticism, taking yourself out of the middle and peeling back all of the BS that you have. That's how it's done. It's not like some nursery. I mean, we asking this comrade to take on a very serious responsibility, coming into the party, working in the IEC, the International Exec Committee of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. So there are no training wheels that comes with it. There are no training wheels. And this process of criticism and self-criticism, the most essential kind of process that somebody can go through, so that we say that you on the bicycle now, and if it's wobbly, it's not anything we can do in terms of training wheels, but what we do is we engage in criticism, so that you can fix it. That's what it's about. It's not about your not being able to ride a damn bicycle. It's about fixing it so that you can do it. And so I think that we could take a sort of liberal stance and assume the responsibility for poor Walia. But Walia is joining the party not because of what's going to be done for her. She's joining the party for what she has to contribute to the struggle of our people. And that means overcoming all the contradictions that she has with her that the party exposes. That's what the criticism is, say, expose. This is a problem. This is wrong. And having the ability to respect democratic centralism enough to go ahead and do what has to be done. And if you have a question about that, you do it and then come back and ask the question. But this reflexive kind of thing. And I think it's important for us to understand, too, that we join the party as individuals. We come into this movement as individuals. There's no collective group, me and my boyfriend, me and my husband, me and my wife, and that kind of thing. You know, we carry our own load. So if your husband, boyfriend, sister, brother is in this work, they're going to be criticized just like you're going to be criticized if an error is there. And then you have a responsibility to hear the criticism. And if it's correct, to join in the criticism as opposed to trying to deflect it, because it's only the bourgeoisie that does not want criticism to be made and contradictions to be exposed. We want all the contradictions to be exposed so that they can be dealt with. So I, really appreciate this process, and also what I think I hear in terms of the stance of Comrade Walia. I just wanted to say that. Uhuru.
Is there any other comments from the floor, and we need to make them?
Okay. Uhuru, this is Kabula Mutombo. I may have missed it, but I'd like to ask what the original circumstances for leaving the party, and if there was any, the exact thing to be made right, to rectify it. Yeah.
The contradiction was around violation of democratic centralism. There was we named 2 incidents specifically around her behavior Walia's behavior on the phone call where she, K-Fing, you need to mute your phone. Okay, Walia, you might need to mute for a second. Okay, so that incident, and then the gossiping that was also done, that Comrade President, attack on democratic centralism.
An attack on me and my leadership, and gossip and attack on Comrade Onizane Shatella in that fashion as well.
Yeah. Any other comments? And they need to be very brief. Okay. Walia, you have 2 minutes. You can give a closing statement if you wish.
I want to say that I unite with what everyone has said today. I unite with the issue. It was a democratic, my stance against democratic centralism. I want to say that I want to recommit myself to the party to do the work that needs to be done, and to follow my leadership, and to follow the party code of conduct if you deem that I should be able to join the party again. And I realized that I really appreciate this process, because it's really making me, like Chairman said, really look at the contradiction for what it is, and not hide around it, and also realizing that every person does have conditions that they deal with colonialism, and I do have these conditions. I do, like every African does, but I am not an exception to anything, and that the way to overturn these contradictions is to give my will to the party and to do what's asked of me to do. Uhuru.
Uhuru Walia, I really want to express appreciation for you being a part of this hearing, appearing. I thought you expressed yourself well, and we're going to be making a vote very shortly, but I just wanted to express appreciation for you coming on. Uhuru. Walia, we're going to be calling a vote, and if you want to witness that vote, you can, if you want to stay on.
Okay.
Okay. So the question on the floor is the reinstatement of Walia Brooks. You've heard the evidence, and I'm going to ask that the people who accept Walia Brooks back into the party raise your voting cards. Sounds like feedback. Did you say yes, K-Fing? Okay, we heard you. Got everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. We heard you, K-Fing. We heard you. You got him? Hello? Okay. All right. All those opposed to bringing Walia Brooks back into the African People's Socialist Party, please raise your voting cards. Okay, it's unanimous. Walia, you've been accepted back into the African People's Socialist Party. I just want to make one brief statement. I was turned around by Walia's stance. I was really turned around. I thought she did very well. I thought she was really honest in her approach. Because the Reinstatement Commission wasn't so sure. We had some doubt. But I think the right decision was made. I really agree with Uhuru. So we have some important work to do, and I want to adjourn the Reinstatement Commission, express appreciation for all your hard work and your research and your questions and comments as well. Uhuru. Okay, so I want to make sure everybody has the African People's Socialist Party Constitution, the Constitution of the African People's Socialist Party.
One moment.
One moment. Okay, one moment. Okay, so I've been told that we do have 13 minutes for question on the security workshop. 13 minutes. So what I'm going to ask people to do, if you have a comment or a question, you need to line up. You know, don't do it one at a time. Everybody just get in a line so we can do it kind of quick because we only have 13 minutes for that discussion. Well, what we're doing right this minute is what we were saying. We would take the question and answer on the security, and then in 13 minutes we're going to do. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Uhuru. So I just really want to appreciate the security presentation. And I just had a question about if you are riding in a car you ride in the car and you in the back seat, and the police pull you over, and the only person that's talking is the person that's driving. But what if the police decide to ask everybody in the car for their ID?
That's a good question. Now, technically, you do not have to identify yourself if you're a passenger unless it's quote unquote an investigation going on. So a routine traffic stop does not qualify as an investigation. Now, we actually had this happen. Comrades are traveling, we get stopped, and we got stopped because they said he was driving too slow on the highway. Yeah, this has actually happened. And there were other people in the car. One of them was laying down and the police didn't see him, but I was the front seat passenger, the navigator. They asked for my ID. I gave it to them. I didn't say, you know what, the Supreme Court said that I don't have to do that and blah. You know why I gave it to them? To end the encounter. Because he wasn't hostile or anything. He was like, passenger, can I see your ID? Sure. I let him see my ID. And in the next 2 minutes, it was over. He was gone. So sometimes you're going to have to make a decision about how you handle these things. But the chairman mentioned exceptions to how we would handle these kind of police stops. But in that instance, I made a decision that I was going to show him my ID so I could end that encounter.
Uhuru, I really want to appreciate this overview of the policies of security, and just because I didn't know a lot of these things, and it gave me like a solid principled idea of what to do. And I have two quick questions. I know the FBI can show up at your door, but are they obligated to be like, yo, this the FBI, or can they be incognito?
Well, they send secret police all the time. But if they come to your door, they could come in undercover. But the ones that came to my house, they had on suits. They said we're the FBI.
So it could be like a pizza boy or something like that?
It could be.
Okay.
And remember, they're gathering intelligence. So they're gathering that intelligence any way they can do that, through social media, through pretending to be taxi cab drivers, any way they can gather it. So sometimes they come as the FBI, sometimes they don't.
Uhuru, and my last question is,
Right. That's what I was talking about. When they come and say, we're the FBI, we want to talk to you.
Uhuru, some people might be familiar with this, but I'm not. What if they don't give you a Miranda? What if they don't do that in that case?
It's been established in the courts that you do not have to be Mirandized immediately. They can give you Miranda once they actually get you to the police station. So sometimes they never do it. It doesn't happen at all. And you should pay attention to that. Maybe it could be in a court case, maybe it could be an issue, but just remember, whether they read Miranda or not, keep your mouth closed.
Right.
Whether they saying you have the right to remain silent, now that we've been educated, we already know that, so they ain't got to tell us. So now we remain silent.
Uhuru, I had a couple of comments. One, I really appreciate the workshops and the importance of really helping the party, the whole party understand the importance of security. And a couple of things I think that, and just observation, that we, in doing security, the goal should always be to protect the party. And which means that even if you're in these situations, that we always allow the party to be able to come to our defense, so don't, create a situation where you go into jail for weed and then think the party's supposed to come to your defense to fight on your behalf, or something else that's crazy that we couldn't really defend. The other thing is that, I think it's important to say that our goal is always to meet our goals and objectives. This is to get from St. Pete to St. Louis. Let's get to St. Louis. You know what I'm saying? Don't create a situation where somebody got stuck in Georgia, and now we got half a contingent coming, and half of the contingent got to stay back to deal with that situation. But even in situations like in meetings, our goal is not to be hostile towards any comrades, but it's to carry out our agenda and meet our goals. So to try to, relinquish that process. And I think it's important because I've seen this a lot happen, but like even when traveling, like protecting the contacts. Because if you got contacts and then they sit in the back window, the police can just come up and take a snapshot of that, and they got everybody contact name that you got and can penetrate the party in that way. And I don't know if this can be answered now, but the question that I had was around, will there be, fitness trainings or standards for security?
Uhuru. Yeah, there will be. We're still growing and building and trying to perfect this process, but I go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week with the chairman. I can wear 38 now. I used to wear 42. So obviously it's working. So yeah, but that will be happening, Kobina.
Uhuru. I have 2 quick questions. The first one is, especially on trips or traveling that's pertaining to the party or just in general, what are your recommendations for legal firearms carrying if you have a weapons carry permit, especially as you're traveling across state lines? And then also, is there a particular number that should be called in the event that you're arrested to reach the party?
Yeah. Last question first. It should be contacts for the place where you left and a destination contact in case that happens. So if you're closer to the place you left and you get arrested, like 20 miles from where you left, that person would need to deal with it if you're closer to the destination. That contact would be dealing with it. So we need contacts on both ends of the trip. You asked another question. What was that other part of your question?
Firearms.
Firearms. They have what they call reciprocity in 40 states, something like that, 43 states. Reciprocity means that one state recognizes your firearm permit and with the other. So if I got a firearm permit in Florida, Missouri recognizes that. However, when you're crossing state lines, you need to know what states recognize that. You need to be aware of that, because if you're going from Florida to, say, California, somewhere in between might not recognize your firearms permit. So you need to be aware of that. But we can talk more after this.
I just want to share a situation. I've said it before. Leaving the cadre intensive in 2016, me and a comrade were stopped in the car, and the police actually, they said that I was driving erratically. I had seen the cop car following me, so I was driving very carefully. And so when he stopped me, he told me to leave the car and come out and see him. And I said, what am I being stopped for? He tells me that I was driving erratically. I said, no, I wasn't. And anyway, long story short, he started asking me questions about where I was coming from, where was I, how long was I there, and all this other type of stuff. So I didn't answer any of those questions really, and he left me with a warning. And then I went on my way. But I was in between. I was driving from St. Petersburg, Florida, back home to Maryland. So I was somewhere in North Carolina somewhere. But, I just knew that it was a part of that process of knowing who I was and knowing, because I was driving my own vehicle, not a rental. And so I just wanted to raise that and see, just to help other comrades, and if you had anything you wanted to add to that
Well,
situation.
the only thing I would add is you shouldn't be volunteering information. When the police say, show me your license and registration, oh, I'm coming from X, Y, and Z. No. You don't have to do all of that. Show them the license and registration. I mean, you're not trying to get the encounter stretched out and make friends for the barbecue. You're trying to get the thing over.
Uhuru, I just wanted to know from you, Chimarenga, is it necessary to have a conversation with your friends and family, about the potential of them being approached, by operatives of the state?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely important. Because if your family doesn't know who you are, they could be the ones that turn you in. So you need to really school them on what I'm not saying give party business. I'm just saying I think they should have, because our family and friends are people we should be trying to recruit.
Yeah.
So clearly we have to, educate them on the politics that we have, African internationalism, and try to bring them to a meeting so they can get more deeply involved, but they definitely have to be schooled.
And it's been our experience, and co-founder of the party, Couture Carey in particular, who was a school teacher in Alachua County in Florida, and who had a roommate who was a very responsible woman. The FBI came and talked to her roommate about, well, we don't think she's up to anything bad, but she's hanging out with people who are dangerous and carry guns, and they're up to violence, and they would do that to your family members too. They say, and because they know your family cares about you, and we know she's great. It's not about her, it's these people she's with. And then we'll attempt to solicit information on the people she's with by telling your friends or family members that it's in order to protect her that they should give them information. So it's really important. If we have to recreate and deepen this culture of not snitching in the community, and I appreciate that among most of the Africans in this community. If you see people get shot and don't tell the police who did it, the no snitch thing is really deep, and I think we should deepen that to the extent that our family members, nobody, don't tell them anything. We don't do that. So yes, comrade, we should talk to our family and our friends and hopefully let them know that such a thing might happen, but it's all right, that they're just trying to frighten you in order to get to me. Yeah, Uhuru. And I think it's really important, I think Kobina suggested it, for you to always remember that you're not alone. Because there's a sense of isolation when you come into contact with the state. It's a sense of isolation that descends on you, that just me and this cop, but you're not alone. There are people all over the goddamn world, who are concerned about what happened to you. So you don't have to panic and think you got to do anything based on an assumption you're not alone. That's especially true if for any reason you should go to jail, because we actually have done trainings on this on a regular basis, and in our training we'll continue to do this kind of stuff, not to frighten you, but to prepare you for any possibility. At this moment, it's not exactly likely that's going to happen, but even since we've been here, you've heard the cops, 8 cops come out because somebody got an email about the flag. Which is the line that they put forward. So anything can happen, but we want to be prepared for anything should it happen. That's the only reason we're having this discussion. And going to jail, there's nothing that's more definite and permanent than to hear that cell door close behind you. It's startling, and it's. But you should not be afraid. You're not alone. So you shouldn't do something or act a certain way because you think that you're by yourself. We know we are in motion now to try to deal with it. Perhaps even before you got to the cell, we might have been in motion. And sometimes people have had the experience of going to jail and in St. Petersburg or Philadelphia, someplace else, and then before they book them, the police station are getting calls from all around the world, all around the world. You're not alone, and I think it's really important for you to understand that. So you don't have to do anything based on the assumption that you're alone. And I want to say that it's really important to understand that you have a responsibility to protect yourself and not to do reckless stuff. Yes. And it's not just with the state or something else. It's in your neighborhood. It's encounters, like with there are certain areas in the community some people won't go. And there are certain circumstances you shouldn't go to certain places where you know that there's a great likelihood, that there's going to be confrontation because you don't belong to yourself anymore. So if something happens to you, it's not just you that has happened to, it's the responsibility and role that you play in this revolution. So protect yourself all the time. I just want to say that, and there are other people.
Yeah. I'm getting the time's up signal, so what I want to do is keep your comments to 30 seconds.
Okay.
15 seconds gone.
Okay, I appreciate security and the party for deepening the question of security. That's it.
Uhuru.
Okay, I have a question. So in a situation like when the chairman was talking about not knowing that you would go to jail that day when you engaged the police about the Africans that they were stopping. So in situations like that, does the community have a right to know, like when the police is making an arrest, what's going on, or do they not have to say anything about the arrest if it's not you? Did I say that? Does that make sense? You get what I'm saying, Aisha?
Oh, do they have to explain why they're doing that?
Yeah, it's to somebody else. But if they're not arresting me, like, do they have to explain?
No, they don't have to explain that. But I think the chairman can clarify. When he intervened, it was a crowd of people. So he wasn't trying to convince the police. He was talking to the people. So when you intervene like that, you're not trying to convince them to do the right thing. You're trying to convince the Africans there that a crime is being committed against our community.
I didn't finish that because after I did that, I was severely criticized for that intervention. Because I violated all kinds of things. I put so much in jeopardy by doing that, and as chairman of the party, here I'm in the streets having this encounter, with the cops and et cetera. So, but that's what I did as an organizer. I would do this as an organizer on the street, but I was criticized for having done that because, if something had happened, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you about this today. That was the criticism that I received, and it was a correct criticism. But Chairman Ring is correct. The point was to bust that up because they were doing it all the time. They call it proactive policing, and their objective was to get identification of every African man in the city of St. Petersburg. And they would stop people just for nothing. And so you have to embolden the community to resist that, and that was my intervention, as incorrect as it was. Uhuru.
Or this is Kabula. This is about the need and to develop vacation protocols and posting on Facebook. In the past, I assumed incorrectly that Facebook was a way to get inform family and friends, comrades that where you going and where you at, and check on me on the way. But we in the need to develop something more solid because they could intercept that, or make you think you posted it, not just send a text message, or they could probably even fake your voice now, but to maybe appear in person and tell your family and friends, comrades about where you plan to travel or what you're doing. Or
we're going to have to close the question and answer. We're kind of digging into the time for discussing the Constitution. So I want to express appreciation for all the questions and comments. You need to go into your black folders and take out this document that says African People's Socialist Party, USA Constitution. It should be in your black folder. You should have two constitutions in there, one that says ASI and one that says African People's Socialist Party.
The thing that was going to be removed from the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't reprint it, but yeah, we would have had to reprint the whole thing. But no, we weren't reprinting it, but I am going to talk about that, the part that we're going to take out. 26, okay. So I'm not going to read the Constitution verbatim, but there are sections that I want to bring your attention to. And the first section is on page 5 in Article 2.0. That's the APSP relationship to the African Socialist International. Okay, it's 5 on my paper, but it's Article 2.0. The APSP USA subscribes and adheres to the program and political philosophy of the ASI, that's the African Socialist International, including the ASI main resolution. The ASI is an international revolutionary party with component national organizations in different countries, operating under the name African People's Socialist Party. Example, African People's Socialist Party USA, APSP United Kingdom, Occupied Tanzania, and so on. I wanted to read that because I know sometimes people might hear the term ASI, but that explains the relationship. The component parts of the ASI are the different country organizations of the African People's Socialist Party. The different sections. So if you can go to, some things were not changed, but if you can go to section 6.0, yes, page 8 on my document. This is Article 6.0, the structure of the African People's Socialist Party. And I wanted to bring your attention to 6.1.1. The National Party Congress shall be held not less than 3 months, 90 days before the regularly scheduled International Congress. The International Congress is every 5 years. So it's not every 5 years that the national congresses occur. They occur in this time frame. They have to be held not less than 3 months before the International Congress. So in 2023, when the International Congress happens in Occupied Tanzania, a year, 6 months, not less than 3 months before that, all the national congresses will have been held, including the one in the United States.
Can we say that this is a major difference in the Constitution? Not just that we're saying that the Congress will be held every 4 years, is that it? Every what?
Every at least 1 year before the International Congress.
Right, this is a major difference because now what we're saying is there's going to be an International Congress every 5 years. And we're meeting, that's the ASI Congress. That's an international Congress. That's the meeting that Garvey held, that they were holding annually, where the Africans from around the world would come together in a single Congress. That's what's going to happen every 5 years. And I'm hoping that we can do this in Africa frequently. And right now, South Africa, in quotes, is a place where there's enough space, democratic space, that makes that possible. So we're planning in 2023 for International Conference of African People from around the world to occur. And when I say African people, of course, we're talking about party, to occur in occupied Azania under the leadership, or certainly with the responsibility, logistical and everything being in the possession of the African People's Socialist Party, occupied Azania. So that's a major difference. That's a major difference. And it's a critical difference because it concretizes in a real dynamic and organizational way the African Socialist International and the international character of the African Revolution. It gives concrete manifestation to it. And we talk about having this Congress in 2023 in occupied Azania. The greater likelihood now of Africans from throughout the continent of Africa getting to that single meeting and building the revolutionary project all over Africa is enhanced mightily. And also the sense of Africans around the world that this is an African revolution is going to be enhanced so very much. So that's a major difference and change that's been made in the Constitution. Go ahead,
Thank you, Chairman. So I want you to go to now page 9 under 6.2. Section 6.2 is the National Central Committee. Now you will see, what you will see is the National Central Committee officers, how they're elected under 6.2.3. They should be elected at the National Party Congress. That election will be happening later on today. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. There are certain standards, and it says a party member shall be in good standing, not on probation, dues paid in full before the election, 1 year prior to the election, must not have been the subject of any disciplinary action within the year prior to the election. So those are the requirements for the Central Committee people who are standing for election. Now, if you go to page 10, at the top of page 10, it goes 6.2.31, it starts naming the officers of the National Central Committee. And I want to bring your attention to section 6.2.38. That's the National Director of the African Internationalist Youth Organization. What we are proposing is that that section be taken out. This organization does not exist. Now, let me tell you how we got to this point. There was an African Internationalist Youth Commission, and there were other commissions in the Central Committee. Those positions were not filled, and they were commissions. We had a very long discussion led by the chairman who said that we didn't need these commissions there, but also we didn't need all these different officers on the National Central Committee. So we're eliminating some of those positions. That does not mean that that organization won't exist at some point. It doesn't exist now, but the organizations, we changed those commissions to organizations. So now it's the African Internationalist Youth Organization. At some point, we'll be building that, but that will not be a position on the National Central Committee. And then 6.2.39, the National Director of the African Farmers, Peasants, and Agricultural Workers Organization. That was a commission. We changed it to organization, and we feel like that is another place where we can remove that position from the National Central Committee, build that organization. At the moment, that position is not filled. And then, under 6.2.3, the National Director of the African Internationalist Labor Organization, that would be removed. So for the same basis, we change that from commission to organization, but that is going to be removed. Those will not be seats on the National Central Committee. Is everybody following me? Okay. Chairman, you want to?
One reason for that is we were in a situation and looking at these offices and organizations that we were talking about. And right now, there are organizations of the party, constituent organizations that sit on the Central Committee of the party. These are constituent organizations that some of them, African National, I'm sorry, the NPDOM, as an example, where the leadership is chosen, selected by the chair. And in African People's Solidarity Committee, the chair of the African People's Socialist Party chooses that leader. We felt really uncomfortable about having a lot of different people sitting on that Central Committee who were simply chosen by the chair, as opposed to having been elected to sit on the Central Committee. We felt like that could affect, in a very serious way, like the dynamics of the entire organization by having that. And we say that we intend to build the African Internationalist Labor Organization. We intend to build the African Internationalist Youth Organization, IEO. We intend to build these, but they just won't be seats on the Central Committee. They will be under the leadership of the party, the Central Committee of the party, department of the party, but not on the Central Committee. And it's not necessary at this point anyway to make that happen. So that's the basis. That was the thought process that went into making this change. It didn't speak to the most dynamic kind of democracy we felt. Just to have so many people on the Central Committee who were chosen by the chair, as opposed to in this process that we're having here today. Udo.
So, thank you, Chairman. So in section 6.3.6, that is actually a job description of one of the positions, the director of the African Internationalist Youth Organization. Of course, that job description would be removed concurrent with removing that position from the list of officers. Section 6.3.7 on page 16. The National Director of the African Farmers, Peasants, and Agricultural Workers job description would be removed. 6.3.8 on page 16. National Director of the African Internationalist Labor Organization, that would be removed. And then part of that job description goes over to page 17.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Did we determine that these organizations would not exist?
We did not.
We didn't determine that. So when we're talking about removing them now from the, moving these job descriptions, they are job descriptions of forces that would sit on the Central Committee. Is that it?
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted us to be clear on that, that we intend to build these organizations. And these are job descriptions that would fit for the leadership of these organizations, but they are not going to be included in the Constitution as forces that would be on the Central Committee of the party. Yeah. Is everybody with us? I used to hate this part of meetings, congresses and stuff we go to. We go into this, but is everybody following this process? Okay, Uhuru. Yeah.
Everybody's awake, right? All right. Ooh. So go to page 21, if you will. Section 6.7.18. 6.7.1.8. And this is just a repeat of, now this is under the regional organization. But the regional organization had some of those same job descriptions. So what we're doing is just cleaning up throughout the whole structure. This is part of the regional structure, so we would be removing Regional Director of the African Internationalist Youth Organization. Same thing with the farmer, the 6.7.1.9, which is Regional Director of African Farmers, Peasants, and Agricultural Workers. And then 6.7.1.10. Regional Director of the African Internationalist Labor Organization. And then so I just wanted to mention this as well. Under the ASI Constitution, it's kind of very connected to the party's Constitution because the ASI Constitution is the sort of the body of work that the party's Constitution came from. So I am going to be saying a few things about the ASI Constitution, but right now I want to entertain discussion on the things that we just said, because shortly we'll be voting on both ASI and party's Constitution. So is there any discussion on any part of this Constitution? And we should keep our comments and questions brief.
I just recognized in the Constitution about, and I noticed before when I joined the party as well, about the NCC, National Security Director, that would be you, yes? Were you just voting just now when we were talking about the, I noticed that. NCC.
I was,
okay.
and let me tell you the difference.
Okay.
I cannot vote in an NCC meeting.
Oh.
I cannot vote in an NCC meeting.
But you can vote in this capacity,
Yeah.
in this regard. Okay, Uhuru.
Uhuru. Any other discussion?
That was a really good observation. And the reason that the forces responsible for security cannot vote in NCC meeting is because we have a strict policy that politics control the gun. The politics under absolute control of the gun. The gun cannot control the politics. When you're talking about security, that's what you're talking about. And so that's the basis of that. So the gun doesn't vote. And in fact, you have to be careful because otherwise the gun will decide who can vote, right? If there's going to be a vote and what have you. So that's what we are working with here, Uhuru.
Any other discussion? Because I know you read both constitutions all the way through. So you must have some discussion.
And the discussions don't have to be limited, as you heard from Comrade Haas. They don't have to be limited to what we've just gone through. Because the changes that we've just talked about are changes it's a dynamic process, and it's going to happen more. By the time of our next plenary constitution, there will probably be other tweaking of this constitution to make it do what we need for it to do. So the basis of this constitution is not to trap us permanently into any kind of situation. If it doesn't serve us, then change it. And but what it does is give us law and order that makes everybody in the party responsible to the same set of rules, the same constitution. And more than anything, of course, the Constitution places limitations on what the leadership of this party can do. So it will be changed. I'm sure of that. I mean, just looking at some of the positions that we're talking about that once were commissions and now we're saying organizations and not on the Central Committee, I'm sure that some of these forces are going to be on the Central Committee. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But right now, this is what we're working with. So if there are any questions, any observations, et cetera, that people want to raise.
Can you come to the mic?
Are these questions just limited to APSP USA?
Yes, right.
Just APSP USA at the moment.
Okay.
We are going to go to ASA.
Uhuru, on page 13, under the National Deputy Chairperson job description, on the last section it says, shall act with all powers of the National Chairperson, and in the event the National Chairperson and the National Secretary General are incapacitated or die while in office, these powers will be retained by the National Deputy Chairperson until a special election. I'm trying to understand, like, are you talking about who is the National
The National Secretary General is Comrade Ghazi Kozo.
Okay.
And what you will see is the International Central Committee, the Secretary General is Comrade Louise Kinshasa. It's an important question that's being raised, because I want to be clear that Comrade Louise Kinshasa, in my estimation, my view, is the central force, and we're talking about leadership of the party. The thing is that we have a situation where we create a constitution of the ASI, we tussle with this, how to make this happen. And there is such a thing as African People's Socialist Party, Occupy Tanzania, African People's Socialist Party, France, and all these other places. So they are national party organizations. And so in terms of the structure that we have now, the Secretary General is the Secretary General USA. And that's what we're talking about. So Comrade Ghazi, in the event something happens to me, within, I think it's 30 days or so, Comrade Ghazi assumes leadership and authority, and within 30 days has the responsibility of organizing a special election to deal with that. If something happens to me and then to Comrade Ghazi, it moves to the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party, whoever that should be. And we think it's really important to look at this question of secession seriously, so that we don't have situations where people don't know and can, confound it with the loss of any leadership in the African People's Socialist Party. And right now, there are organizations that exist, and I don't know the answer to the question of what would happen if something happened to that leadership, if that leadership went away. And this party plans to be here absolutely until the advent of communism. This party plans to be here, and so this is the way we protect this party, protect the revolution, and protect all of the membership of the African People's Socialist Party.
Not that I think something's going to happen to you or whatever, but I just want to be...
But you're planning for it just in case.
Okay, I just, I know there's two constitutions, one of the ASI and
Yes.
one of the APSP USA. So if Louise is going to be, if something happened to you, Louisi is it.
Louisi is the leader of the African Socialist International and all of the party organizations around the world.
So wouldn't that be in this document?
It's
Because
in the document.
But why wouldn't it be in this document?
Because this document says that it adheres to the ASI document. This Constitution says that it adheres to the Constitution of the ASI. Doesn't it say that? Yeah.
Where does it say that at? Because I ain't seen that.
Well,
I'm
it
just
says
trying to understand to make sure
What does
that
it
it
say?
is covered.
What does it say about the ASI?
On the legal. What page?
Yeah, in 2.0, I read,
page?
I think you might have been out of the room, DC. But I was reading the African People's Socialist Party USA subscribes and adheres
Here you are.
to the program and political philosophy of the ASI, including the ASI main resolution. The ASI is an international revolutionary party with component national organizations in different countries, operating under the name African People's Socialist Party. Example, APSP USA, APSP United Kingdom, APSP Occupied Azania. So the program, constitution, all of that
Say
is.
Constitution explicitly. Say Constitution explicitly. It says the philosophy and,
Okay.
That's what I loved about Nkrumah, because Nkrumah put in the Constitution of Ghana, if I'm not mistaken, that Ghana, the Constitution of Ghana would adhere to a constitution, what have you, of an all-African government. And that was in there before there was any, before they killed him, to make sure, at least temporarily, that there would not be an all-African government.
Uhuru, I'm revisiting the inquiry I had earlier. Should that be laid out in the Constitution as far as like the limitations as to when you can vote, like explicitly? Because believe it or not, since I joined the party, when I recognized something, like, okay, then I see it happen. Well, since I joined the party, I already had like it bothered me a lot. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I'm not.
Okay, so pretty much I'm thinking, since you laid out in what capacity you could and could not vote, I think that should be implemented into the Constitution. No, there's no indication in the Constitution that says when you can and cannot vote in that. In the job description, yeah.
I was talking about.
Yeah, no, his job description doesn't say when he can and cannot vote.
Or talking about you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm talking about you again. Yeah, I'm talking about you again.
So you trying to say?
I'm gonna pry.
Are you stuck on that?
I am.
Yeah, he wouldn't have voted now except he's strapped.
So the next questions need to be really brief. I'm getting the hook.
Okay, just.
Yeah.
In the Constitution, I guess like it should be.
It should say within the NCC meeting. I think we can make that change. Okay.
Can any changes of the Constitution be made after this vote? Like, I mean, as far as like job descriptions and stuff like that, because there's a lot of stuff that's in my job description that, it's like a lot. That that was when I was chief of staff. So I just want to know if some of that stuff can be altered after we vote on the Constitution or not.
I think the spirit of the description of the Congress and its role, that would not happen. However, do you have some specific things that you want to know?
I think it'll be the next comments before.
Yeah.
That would be revisited. Like the rest of us, you have to bleed and suffer. and hope that I don't die.
All right. This is gonna be the last comment.
Uhuru. My question, I guess, stems from the discussion around the African People's Socialist Party USA and all the other African People's Socialist Party national national organizations falling up under the ASI Constitution. And because I guess maybe like ideally, would there be the chair of the African Socialist International, would he or she ideally not be the chair of a national organization, or would that be the only person, like a chair of a national organization would be capable of being the chair of the African Socialist International?
Yeah, I think that person could be the chair, but it's a question of whether, but it's not etched in some kind of stone, you know. I think that, for example, with the Communist International, I think Lenin was formerly the leader of the Communist International, but he is not the one who really did the work. It was a guy named Zinoviev who was the real leader of that work while Lenin was alive. And I should mention to you, just as something you might find interesting, that Zinoviev was one of the people on the Central Committee of the Bolshevik Party that snitched on Lenin and the other communists when they were getting ready to, went and told the government these guys are getting ready to overthrow it, and actually had it put in the newspapers, right? So he was in the Central Committee of the Bolshevik Party and snitched on the organization, et cetera. He still ended up heading that work. You figure that out, you know. But yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's not necessary, but it's possible somebody to do that, yeah.
And I guess the reason why, to me, that's important is because should anything happen to you, Chairman, before we're free, we want to be clear that we know who the leadership is. And right now, the African People's Socialist Party USA plays a really key role in developing all of the other various African People's Socialist parties around the world. So we play kind of a central role that may not be necessarily as central at some point in the future, but like S.G. Loisy is the leadership, right? I mean, that's why I'm trying to be clear about how we see that.
I think that what you're going to find, and this is an interesting question that's being posed by Comrade Aisha, is that we can have a meeting in much of Africa on any given day, and hundreds of people will come out to that meeting. Hundreds. If they know the meeting has happened, hundreds will come out. We're going to have large party organizations all over the continent of Africa, much larger than the party organization in the United States. But the United States, for the party organization here for a long time, is going to be central to the ASI. And it's going to play a dynamic leading role in the ASI, and it should be like that. It's not because of some American-centric, you know, kind of politic that I do from time to time here and experience within the ranks of this party that's can't see, you know, outside of America and forget the name of the, anyway. So that happens. You know, sometimes we have a rather myopic view, but the reality is, for a number of reasons that Comrade Secretary General can probably talk more about, is that the African People's Socialist Party USA is going to play for a long time a critical role in the leadership of the ASI, and it's probable that much of the leadership and the structure of the ASI is going to be coming from the African People's Socialist Party USA, except as a part of the ASI structure is what we're going to see. And that's partially because you've got experience that's different, history that's different, because of your presence here, much of what expresses itself as ethnic shit and tribal stuff is not here, and it allows us, because when somebody, I say I'm an African, and they say, well, don't you want to find out what part of Africa you came from? I came from that part of Africa that they call Africa. You understand? So, you know, no hang-ups about what ethnic group, what region. I don't care about that. Let's establish that I'm from Africa. And that's the critical question. And I think that we're going to have less contradictions for a while around that, and it's going to be really important, because I've gone to meetings and people say, well, we can't trust Fulani. Well, hell, you don't know if I'm Fulani. I don't know if I'm Fulani. How the hell are you going to make that a basis of how we get together? And also because we're in a location with much more developed infrastructure, although you can't tell it in North St. Louis and most of the communities where we live in, the infrastructure here is much more developed, and we have access to communications capacity and stuff like that that's going to be really important. We are located where a concentration of value, wealth is located. It gives us a certain other ability to contribute to the African Revolution. And so those are just some of the things, and Comrade Louise can talk about others of those things as well. So I believe that for a period of time, and I think that the comrades, listen, we have comrades in Kenya right now, in South Africa as examples. You haven't heard anything from those comrades that did not recognize that we are an African Socialist International, that we are one organization, and that the party here plays an amazing leading role in that process. There hasn't been any contradiction with that. In many ways, it's expected. Uhuru, Comrade Louise.
Yes, well,
Comrade, you crazy.
Just to... I haven't seen you today. Yeah. Yeah, basically just to add a couple of things to what the chairman just said. One thing that's really critical, the leading imperialist power is still the United States.
Yeah.
The enemy of the whole world basically is here. And the African nation is here. Yeah. Just by that fact, it makes the African working class a strategic force. Yes. And not only that, the United States has already engaged Africa in a total war. It's not in the news, but U.S. is in a war every day in Africa. This morning, early in the morning, I spoke to people in the Congo. Two trucks collided. 80 people dead.
Two what?
Trucks.
Uh-huh.
Lorries.
Yeah.
But they don't understand how people can be burned when two trucks collided.
Yeah.
And people believe the drone did it.
Yeah.
And the United States has a base. The United States has got 44 military bases in Africa. So in the Congo, officially, there is one. Yeah. So 44 in 44 countries in Africa.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
You have African soldiers in the U.S. Army. They are there.
Yes.
So these are very critical. And the other thing the chairman touched on is that the revolution is going to be led by the African working class, the African proletariat. And the most advanced African proletariat in the world is in the United States. Then you might take Brazil, Canada, but it's outside of Africa. And this is a factor just to, include in that. And the chairman talked about the resources, things like that. When you look at Europe, it's the English, the German, and the French proletariats, basically, or the working class there, that led the whole process of the struggle for the rights, to transform Europe. So the Africans, the US, are going to play a critical part until the revolution is done.
Yeah.
It's going to be that.
As a man, C.L.R. James, you may have heard me mention him before, sometimes not in a very flattering way, but I remember we were in, I think, London, where he made this incredible statement, where he said that the future of the world is in the hands of the black working class. Unfortunately, It is not in the heads of the black working class. And that's our responsibility, to put it in the heads of the African working class.
DC, you were saying something?
Okay.
I'm being pressed for time,
It's
so
gonna be
30
real quick.
seconds.
Okay, so first I want to ask Aisha, because it's my understanding that you're the national director of APDEP, and that's your role in NCC too, right? So, but it's not listed on here on page 10 with the list of the officers. I don't see that role. Page 10 with the list of the officers of the NCC are as follows. I ain't gonna say them all.
So the only constituent organization that's listed in there is the African National Women's Organization. The other constituent organizations are appointed. We appoint, the chairman appoints the head of NPDUM. So in another place in the Constitution, under his job description, it says he has the prerogative to appoint the heads of the constituent organizations. So that's how those people get on the Central Committee. We just didn't name everyone. I was talking about the actual job description. No, it might not say APDEP or NPDUM, but it says constituent organization.
It says on the bottom of page 10, 6.2.7, appointed NCC members from constituent organizations. Officers may be appointed to the NCC by the national chairperson from constituent organizations as the situation may require, with a 2/3 affirmative vote from sitting NCC members. And so, yeah. I mean, I have no struggle with that. I mean, I don't want there to be any ambiguity or questions about it. And but I appreciate it. Go ahead, comment. Yeah.
I just thought that there was a distinction because they weren't voted on, but they were appointed, and I thought that's why they weren't.
But some of the others are not voted on either, and they are appointed and they're there. Isn't that right? I mean, they're appointed.
The only one that's listed is annual. And
that was a commission.
And that's a,
And it was
well,
changed.
well, annual was not a commission.
Right.
It was the African Women's Commission. And we took the commission out and put annual in. The head of annual was also appointed. So is there a suggestion being made that we should add all the names? Is that, I want to make sure I'm hearing that. Okay.
NPDUM.
So NPDUM,
What about, I don't know, if we put APSC and USM here?
but USM and APSC aren't on the Central Committee. So, okay, so I have to move it, comrades. I really appreciate the input. And what I'm going to do is call for a motion to accept the changes and revisions in this Constitution with the additions that we just talked about, adding the names of NPDUM and APDEP. All the constituent organizations would be named. And I think he made one other note. And the change around making it clear when the National Director of Security can vote. So with those changes, I need a motion to accept.
I think before, well, I guess you call it a point of information or something like that. Before we do this vote, I think we should also include in that motion approval also based on what we've said that should be changed and with recognition that the changes that we just made may require, how do we call it? I don't want to say amendments, but no, I can't say a revision or amendment, but may require some work, you know, like that won't spoil this vote and the intent of this vote, because even as we, you know, as recently as a day ago, we went and said, oops, you know, we made this change and it has this impact or this effect on something else that we may have missed. And I don't know how to put that in the form of a motion.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So, am I understood? I want this Congress to be able to vote on this Constitution and not be surprised if the exact phrasing is not the same one that you saw here, if it does not assault the decisions you know, that we made about this Constitution. If it doesn't alter, change the Constitution, but if there's something that we overlook that makes what we decided here correct or more perfect, then I want this thing to be able to move forward and that it becomes a legitimate document based on that.
Does everybody understand what the chairman is saying?
Okay, yeah. Because Chimarenga is notorious for leaving out phrases and words and notorious. Because Chimarenga is blind and notorious for leaving out phrases and words and things like that. And I don't want us to be trapped in mid-sentence or incomplete sentence or something like that, you know. Of course, at this instance, Agitprop will be involved in this process, and it will be copy edited and proofread and all of that stuff. So, and they're going to fix whatever contradictions are made too. That's why we want to be able to say that we want this document that we've just talked about, but we are not going to frown upon what happens in the process of putting it together, as long as it doesn't alter the determination made by this Congress. Yeah.
Is that the motion, Chair?
I made a motion. Can I get a second? Second. Moved and second.
Discussion? Discussion is already heard. Call the question. All those in favor of accepting this Constitution with the revisions and the stipulations as laid out by the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, please raise your voting cards. Haas, can you count those?
I don't have one last statement.
Okay. Somebody call the question and we.
Uhuru. All right, so I still feel like the National Security Director will still have some kind of impact or influence on the politic in the voting capacity. In any scenario, it still influences the politic of the the party's movement or whatnot.
So, tell me what you're suggesting because the discussion is over.
I'm standing alone right here, so I'm on the spot. But, I feel that to say that, I believe the National Security Director should not be able to vote at all.
You mean ever?
Ever. NCC, even outside of that capacity as well, because you have a department under your leadership as well, and that could also sway their, so Uhuru, in that regard, Uhuru.
Well, we would need
How do you call that? There's an amendment that's been offered, and whether or not I would accept the amendment, is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Wow, y'all damn smart.
You heard the question. Are you ready for the motion?
I do think that's a legitimate concern. I really do. I'm concerned in a very serious way, again, about the gun and its relationship to our politics, our movement, and the fact that the gun has to be subordinate in no uncertain terms to the politic. And I would be willing to accept that amendment.
Uhuru, I don't know if I would vote for that or not, only because the National Security Director has to be a member of the African People's Socialist Party. It has to be a member of the party. And anybody that's a member of the African People's Socialist Party has the right to vote. So I don't, I wouldn't unite with that.
The National Security Director would still be a party member, but this would be only, I guess, parameter that he would not have as National Security Director in that agency that he's emulating.
The National Security Director, I do think, has already been distinguished as different from other party members and other. The National Security Director is not elected. He's on. They may be on the Central Committee, so. I don't see where it's a major contradiction to say that because that person would be a member of the party, therefore that person should have a right to vote, when we also already said that person is not elected like anybody else in the party. I mean, I don't know if that's a major contradiction, but we can.
And I can't vote in the NCC.
Yeah.
Uhuru. So just in terms of Chimurenga and the National Director of Security having really been over the constitutional process, I don't know, not just voting, but he's been over the constitutional process.
You think it's rigged?
No. I'm just raising that. And I just in terms of, and maybe it's irrelevant, but Chimurenga and the wealth of knowledge and his expertise in this particular area, not that we can't replace him in that capacity, but I just wanted to raise that.
I think it's a legitimate concern, and you will find in the party at this moment, in the leadership at this moment, that there are people who wear 5, 6, 7 different hats because it's required. But just because it's required is not something that we like, that we really want to be the case. And as you said, that he does come with a wealth of information and experience and what have you that we're going to take full advantage of. And we stuck him in that room over this tedious process of messing with the Constitution. And we didn't really have that many volunteers, to tell you the truth, who wanted to take this kind of stuff on. And but I don't see it as it being a major contradiction. I think that at this time, I don't think it's a major contradiction. That's why the question of what role in terms of voting and things like that is so important, because we're not going to be talking about an avuncular Chimurenga forever. You know what I mean?
I don't know what that means.
It means uncle-like.
Okay.
Uhuru. Yeah.
So the chairman accepted.
Let's have a discussion.
Discussion on the amendment, and then we will have to vote.
Yeah, we're going to have to go ahead and vote, but the amendment was made that the National Director of Security or the Directors of Security should not vote in any of the conferences and congresses of the party. That this person, that was the amendment.
Uhuru, I just really want to appreciate this process and also just this Constitution and being a part of the Constitution Committee, and just how much work and effort that the committee put in, but especially you, Chairman. And it was, days-long process of really being there from the morning until it's really done. And just that this Constitution is the Constitution of oppressed people, is the Constitution of revolution. It is so advanced and profound and just historic. And I think that in that same energy and in that same move to make sure that we have learned from the mistakes of the others. We have learned from the contradictions and errors that others, revolutionary parties, and created and are so advanced that I unite with the amendment around the person over security not being able to vote. And I think that we have to look at it outside of Chimurenga and as an office. And I think that the Constitution, like Chairman states, it unites with the theory of African internationalism. And that is part of it. When Chairman is saying that it is the politic over the gun, we have to show that within the Constitution. And if that person cannot vote within the NCC, I don't think they should be able to vote outside. And I think that speaks to the seriousness of it and the character of that office, because it's not just that it's a person that represents a department, it's the department with the guns.
Uhuru. Well, just back to my original point that I tried to make, that if that's going to be the case and the amendment is going to be accepted, I feel like it's a contradiction that somebody who's over the whole voting process and the Constitution itself, who was over that process, I think that's an issue.
You make a motion.
What?
Should we undo it? Should we undo it?
Don't do it.
Yeah, make a motion. We ain't talking about should the Secretary General. We're talking about we have a Constitution, gone through a process that created this Constitution. We're here today, and we're hearing in part of this discussion in terms of adopting this Constitution. That's a problem that the person who's over the gun, over security, played the role that he played. So make a motion. Philosophers have explained the world when the task really is to change it. So make a motion. So it's not just the words that you're saying. What do we do? Do we leave? Do we have,
Are you saying to accept or to
Yeah, because what you've done is challenge the whole Constitution and the process of creating the Constitution. That's what you've just done.
Well, based on the exception of the amendment, I think we didn't. Oh, okay. Well, then I can't do anything at this point.
Did you want to make? Were you looking to make a motion of some sort?
Well, I mean, if it hasn't been accepted, then no. If the amendment hasn't been accepted, then I don't think what I'm saying is. If it's accepted, then I think based on that, then we would have to revisit the whole the concept.
I don't understand it, but
if we're saying that we accept the amendment that the National Director of Security should not be able to vote on anything, regardless of if it's the Constitution or not, that they should not be able to vote, based on the reasoning that was given, then we have to revisit the Constitution and how it was all put together.
So why, though?
Because of the whole thing about the gun controlling the politic, and that you have a person who is the guns determining the voting process and the politic of the Constitution.
But the person didn't determine that.
No, they didn't. They just.
We had a commission, a
okay.
committee.
Okay, I was just.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Some jumped ship, but in the last final analysis, I played a fundamental role in pulling all. Yeah, he led the process. He did lead the process,
right.
But he didn't.
But him leading the process is not an issue.
No, it's not an issue. When I say he led the process, he did most of the hard work. But the product that we're looking at now, effectively, is a product that came into existence because of my intervention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that was it. I just wanted to make sure we were being correct.
Sure. I just want to say that, to my understanding, there is no, basically, we already have determined that he can't vote in NCC. I think is enough.
Right.
The whole process is well open, transparent. People can read the documents. There is no contradiction really. And also, we are not in power yet. So if we had the African nation, united with a state power, that's different. You will have a government running a massive department of security, police, secret police, things like that. We are not yet dead. So, I will be not too much concerned. And also, we'll be going to a mobilization for all forces where everyone will be possibly playing a role. We're talking of liberating the entire nation, which means people will be politicized, peasants will bear arms and things like that, and they will have the right to vote. So you will not say because we have the militaries and the military will not have any right to vote. They will have even the right to vote,
Yeah.
the commanders and things like that.
Yeah.
So we should not restrict that in that fashion.
And I think it's appropriate, what we're talking about in the Central Committee, leading body of the party, I think that's appropriate. And that person is also somebody who is selected to that post and to that office. I think that's, I unite with what Comrade Luis said, although I do believe that even though we don't have that now, that's where we're heading. And there's going to be a moment when the National Office of Security is going to control hundreds and thousands of people, even as we move toward liberation. That's going to happen, you know. And also, people, I heard it the other day and I heard it today, that Chimurenga was put forth as my personal security. But we're talking about an office that's responsible for the security of the entire party. And the other thing is, in terms of some of the political stuff that happens, it doesn't mean somebody that's over security won't be involved in politics at all. In fact, the Security Department will have a responsibility of looking at things and documents that's produced by a movement, by a party, by the Central Committee of the party. We'll have the responsibility of classifying these documents, what is secret, what's top secret, what can leave the office, all of this kind of stuff, and that's going to be the Department of Security, and that's a highly politicized, political place, and also attending the various meetings that we go to. Sometimes we go to meetings and we come out of the meetings, and the person in security who was in that meeting is going to have to be capable of really ascertaining that those of us who are leaders have betrayed the interests of the party in these meetings that we go to. Somebody's going to have to be able from the security to be there and make sure that the line that we represent, the security is going to turn out to be really an extremely highly sensitive and very, very important institution inside this party. We're talking about creating an institutionalized process, more and more training. There should be in every meeting that we go to, every organization, there should be somebody who's attached to security. There should be somebody who makes sure that notes are not left in the meetings. When we leave the meeting, there's somebody in security who makes sure that these notes are not left there for just anybody, that makes sure that our contact list and things like that are collected so that they don't just become. And it keeps us on our toes too, in terms of constantly being alert of what it is that we are dealing with. It's an important office, and I agree with Comrade Luisi. I mean, so there are going to be people who are attached to security, and counterintelligence is a really important aspect of the security work as well. Yes. And those persons, we can't say that somebody that's in the Army can't vote. Right? Even though they're controlled, they have the gun. They can't vote because they're in the Army. We do believe in the fact that the gun is subordinate to politically, and I think that restricting the ability of these comrades who are selected by the chair to voting in the Central Committee, they can participate in the Central. It doesn't say they can't even participate in the Central Committee, and Central Committee means they do. Chimurenga does, struggles and et cetera, but he's not able to vote on this stuff. He can persuade you to vote perhaps a certain way, and even when he's unarmed. So I would think that we've heard the proposed amendment. We have two things on the floor. Well, we have on the floor
the amendment is on the floor, and acceptance of the Constitution based on the stipulations that we committed to.
So, and the what?
On the stipulations that you talked about in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
copy editing.
So the question was the amendment. The amendment was that, was one that would prevent the Director of Security from voting at total inability to vote in the process. That was the amendment. Is that right?
Yes.
And first of all, I guess we'll have to deal with the amendment.
Yeah.
And the amendment was put forth by Comrade Haas. Do you still hold to that position, Comrade Haas? So Comrade Haas has put forth the position that security should not be able to vote at all. And I want to see, can we get a second for that? Who's second? May I see you? So Comrade Robert second that. So it has been moved and second that the security force should be prohibited from voting, totally prohibited from voting. I want to call the question, and those who, is there any discussion? Okay, can we call the question? And those who support that amendment, I'd like to see a show of hands for people who says that. And so I see 1, 2, 3 people, 4 people who say that they support the idea that the security should not be voted. 5 should not be able to vote at all. Okay, thank you. I'd like to see those who oppose the amendment that security should not be able to vote. So I think that the amendment was overwhelmingly rejected.
Maybe I shouldn't.
I think that the amendment was overwhelmingly, the amendment was overwhelmingly rejected. Okay.
Yeah, that was my card. The chairman was holding. So yeah, I voted.
See, I pulled a coup. a bloodless coup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's on the floor now, I want to get this through if we can. So with the stipulations that the chairman talked about in terms of copy editing, the revisions that we talked about in terms of clarification on the Director of National Security, I want to see the hands of the people who accept this Constitution as the Constitution of the African People's Socialist Party by show of card. Okay. All those opposed? Okay, there's no opposition, so we have a Constitution of the African People's Socialist Party. Comrades, I've been told that we are an hour behind, so we're going to break for lunch. I'm going to turn the floor back over to Comrade Fofield, and just want to express appreciation for all the input on the Constitution. Uhuru.
The cops in my hood ain't no good. The cops in your hood ain't no good. So don't arrest me. Arrest the police. Don't arrest me. Arrest the police. Uhuru, comrades. We are having a glorious morning. So far, I have to tell you to please visit the vendors during your lunch period. You can pre-order your copy of the published book for Chairman, Political Report for the 7th Congress, which will be available November 2019. It is not too late to sign up for the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise. Go to the Chairman's table. It said February 2019. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to go on a cruise. Okay. February 2019 for the Chairman's book. You can sign. It's not too late to sign up for the Marcus Garvey Legacy Cruise. You sign up at the Chairman's table. The cruise sails December 9th through the 16th from Miami, going through the Caribbean.
People going.
Oh, no, y'all gotta go. Come on, I'm gonna tell you, you better see somebody to be on that ship. It's not too late. It's not too late.
Is this opposition to the ASI?
Uhuru, if you have already paid for your October spears, or if you have a standing order, please get your spears from Olafin today. Before you leave, if it is at all possible, to carry them back with you so we can save on shipping costs. If you have not purchased your October spear, can I get one conversation, please? If you have not purchased your spears, your October spears, they can get them today and carry them back with you. If you plan to order spears but cannot pay for them right now, the Spear Office is offering a one-time exception where you can take 25 to 50 spears today and pay for them online within 1 week. The Freedom Mass Choir is selling candy in the back at the Omali Yeshitela table, and they are accepting donations. Lunch will be served. As you go out, get your lunch, and you can come back in. And we will return, where's Penny? November the 3rd and 4th, Black is Back will be in D.C. to march on the White House. We are going to be there. How many people are going to D.C.? Okay.
Does that mean you're opposed to the Black is Back coalition?
Okay, comrades, if you're going to the cruise, see Ikenge or Ilikia in the back. If you're going to Black is Back, see Ikenge or Ilikia in the back. And if you're here in St. Louis, you see me. Uhuru, let's enjoy lunch. Uhuru.